Hey guys, how you doing? This is Dave with BTM Reviews. Hope you're having a good Thursday. I did. I'm gonna have a better night with you guys. It's always fun being here. I was talking to the guys behind the stage, and Low Watermark's like, "Dude, you stream a lot." He goes, "You got to take a night off." I go, "Yeah, but what am I gonna do? Sit in my house and watch shitty TV? I would rather talk to the chat and hang out and get you guys' opinions on things." So tonight, uh, it's, we call it Theory Thursday. And what we're going to talk about tonight are things that were probably considered, conspiracy theories back then, uh, during and right after World War II. The first one is, Operation Gladio. We'll go over that. And then we're also going to go through that Morgenthau plan that we talked about last night on the stream, because that shit is wild. Uh, just saying, the more you look into that, it is crazy. So we've got a good panel. We all have, we're not old enough to have lived it, but we all, know history and things like that. All right. What's up, JJ? Old man Dave, you're always welcome, dude. All you got to do is say, send me the link, and you're always welcome. So how you doing, buddy? If you want to come in, come on in. So let's talk to Jim real quick.
How's it going, guys? What's new? I know Dave said you had a good panel, but that also includes me, who's not that good.
Very, very true. However, he's here consistently. So, consistency matters, right, Jim? Isn't that what they tell you?
Yeah. If at first you don't fail, keep trying and you'll fall on your face. Low watermark is correct.
All right. That's cool, Dave. I know you're busy and stuff trying to get some work done. I saw your show. I saw your show was on. I thought your show was on another network, but I think the show you said you're working on or worked on, I think it's on Amazon Prime, right? Isn't that where I saw it? It's like, so yeah, JJ, next time you're ready to come on, and catch the guys, also do me a favor, leave a comment or a thumbs up or something, because like we keep losing subs because we're not getting like the engagement. You know what I'm saying, Jim? I don't care if you go in the engagements and leave me a middle finger every day. Yeah, Sausage Party, Foodtopia. Yeah, I saw it on Prime, so I thought it was a Netflix show. Well, good for you, man. Glad to see it's airing. I hope you got paid, and I hope you make some residuals on that stuff, Dave. That's what it's all about, right? Long term. Well, the movie was gross too. So yeah, if you guys just go in the YouTube comments and say, Dave, you're gay, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I know these 5 and 10 hour streams, I'm such a lazy piece of shit. So that's on me. I've had girls on the show before.
Yeah, we need somebody to make the fucking sandwiches, JJ.
Yeah, we don't want them on screen. Wode, how are you, sir?
Hey, Dave. What's up?
How
are you doing? Wolverines.
Well, I'm doing fantastic. I figured out how to download sounds onto my soundboard, so we can get some great. We can get a good one like this, guys. Here we go.
The whole reason we have elected officials is so we don't have to think all the time.
It's true, right?
Unfortunately, for most of the general populace, that is a fact.
Whoa, what's up, Last Son of K? Thank you for the 5 gifted memberships, man. That is very, very nice and a great way to start the stream.
Anybody else think Dave's a little low?
Oh, is that better?
A little better, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty crisp. Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes when your mic's too high and your volume's high, you get a little feedback with this soundboard. You get a little like staticky response. So Last Son of K, thank you very much, sir. That was very nice of you. Dave's Morning Zoo. Soundboard. How you doing, low watermark?
I'm sound and bored because Dave is, Dave is Dave and Dave is Dave. So
Dave is
hey, Woad, how are you
Dave.
doing?
Hi, low watermark. How are you, sir? I am okay.
I'm doing great, and Jim is wonderful too. And that guy up in the corner with the bluish, what is that blue shirt? What is that?
This?
Yeah, it's blue. I'm thinking there's this Japanese man
Hey!
who runs a car wash
It's
who
an
would say,
Ariat shirt. If you work out in the field, you know what Ariat is. I mean,
Or you got some good cowboy boots.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
little boy
most
Blue.
Japanese
He needed
men
the money.
would not wear that.
So JJ says we need an incentive for super chats. It's if you want to. Now, like for $20 super chat, so that's what the board's for. Your name goes on the board with the date and the amount. Last Son of K with 5 memberships almost got there. He's two memberships away. He would have got on the board, but doesn't matter. I appreciate the 5 memberships.
cool.
So he wants me to put on another article of clothing every time someone sends a super chat. I'm in Florida. That can get very hot.
Well, you got to
I'd be
start
like
out
wearing a jacket.
You got to
Well,
You got to
start
start
out
out
in your
naked,
bathing
I
suit.
guess.
Yeah.
Jim,
Yeah.
take off the bra, take off the blue thing, take it all off. Take it all off, Jim.
I don't know, man. If I take off my girdle, I'll look like Vito.
Ben Togel, you're such a
I
Such
could do
an asshole,
mankind a
dude.
service and just shut off my camera if we get enough super chats.
There you
Uh,
go. There you go.
yeah. I'm not going to say I'll drink more. If I get
Oh,
super chats.
please don't.
That's not
Please
going to
don't.
happen because the stream will be over at 10.
I mean, maybe he might go put on like every time someone says a super chat, I could change outfits to a different article, a different Comicsgate matching outfit, or
Yeah.
Or
something
a
like
hibbity
that,
dibbity
or
bullshit
hibbity
t-shirt.
jibbity bullshit T-shirt,
yeah.
or
Well,
Yeah. Or you can put a police vest on and go sit on a roof.
I could. Yeah.
It's kind of sloped.
It's kind of slow. As long
Not
as
too
it's not too
slow.
slow.
Not
I
too
don't-
slow.
I don't
no.
know
Too
if he could
sloped
do
for the
it.
feds, but not
I-
too sloped for the giga.
Oh,
Yeah.
for a cow.
I hear they're pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
I love the cow that walks down the slope. That was great.
Special
Hey.
ops cow.
Julio,
Hey, Julio. Hey.
Hey,
How's it
Julio.
going, guys? This is my
you're going
first
to
time
control
in.
the videos tonight, buddy.
I'm controlling the videos.
Yes.
Okay.
Jim is the producer tonight.
But he's got to turn off his 15 other fucking screens.
I do actually now. I've got way too many fucking things open right now.
Turn them off.
All
So
right,
when we
I
say
got it.
stop,
Give me
you
a
hear
second.
us.
I've been watching. I've been watching Subscribe Star, waiting for Ethan because he's claiming he's only going to make like 50 or 60 or something of those.
Yeah. Forget all that. So, Julio, how
Of
you
those
doing?
what? Of the
I'm
the
doing
Rainbow
good.
the Brute stuff?
The
Thank
black ones, the African American ones.
What's he making?
Okay.
Lawn jockeys?
No, it's something in a black suit, but he's claiming there's going to be super
Oh.
limited, and once they're gone, and he's going to send a link out to Subscribe Star. But I
And
want to
David's
get.
going to be pissed because Ethan is offering for $20 something he bought for $25. I get it. Ethan has been giving sales to things that probably shouldn't give sales to.
Yeah, it's upsetting to me. Well, I'm pissed. I'm still waiting for
Never. Last Sunday, okay? I will never e-bag. Ever. It's not a thing. But
I'm
thank
still
you for the
waiting for
vibe.
my-
Now
Jim-
Last Son of K goes on the board. I'll do it. I'll do it. Total.
Dave needs that money to pay his bills, his internet bill, his electric bill.
Yeah. Our goal
Oh.
tonight is $300. Please contribute to Subscribe Star, to eBag, to PayPal, to Superlink, to Power Chat,
to the
whatever.
World Disc, and
good.
to Jim
We need
Psychologist
another win
and-
for the toe.
Julio wants this, and his mother
Right.
wants that, and everybody wants
I need
this.
I need a fucking picture on my wall.
That's exactly. Why do you have a blank wall? Stop being a blank wall.
I'm
You know, the
here,
funniest, I don't know if you guys have ever
So-
seen
so
any of the
there we go.
videos
Last Son of K, you're on the board for today's date with your
of
total amount.
Aaron
Thank
from
you very
Steel
much.
Toe when he doesn't make
Oh,
the
fuck
when
Aaron
he
from-
doesn't make the goal, and he's sitting there in the last 5 minutes going, "Come on, let's go, a rally! I need 140. Come on! Oh fuck, we're not gonna make it, are we? Oh shit!
Oh,
Okay,
Please do that forever.
He's-
Nobody ever pay
Yeah.
Aaron anything. Don't
No, I
pay
know.
Aaron anything.
He's doing the Camelot. He's doing the Camelot thing, trying to rally everybody every night.
Yes,
at
I've
least to get
been
him
here
to the-
forever. I understood
Yeah.
all this.
He's like Jerry Lewis. That's
Yeah.
what he's doing.
Yeah.
I would argue that Julio has the most manly background out of all of us because that's a true man landscape in the back. Just
Thank
doesn't
you.
give a fuck.
Thank
That
you.
that's it.
Yeah,
Hey,
we see the
Julio,
emojis.
is that really
He
green?
could have at
Or are
least
you
made
doing
its bed,
Are you
though.
doing a color thing?
We see the
there, or-
emojis last Son of K. We're just
Son
having
of a
fun.
bitch, it's just a mattress on the floor, Jim. The fuck do I need a
Fuck.
bed for? I sleep
All
on
right.
the couch.
You got me
like a
beat.
man.
Man,
Like a
I don't
clown.
even have a mattress. I just sleep on the floor.
Everybody stops drinking and you get nasty. The fuck is
I
is
never
nasty.
drink.
Jim is nasty. Oh no.
Jim drinks
it's-
twice a year.
It's like those
And
memes.
Dave
where
and
you-
I never drink. Dave and I never drink. Never get drunk out of our minds. Hey, Dave, how you doing? I've never been drunk.
Did you really
Neither of
pour
you.
your? Did you really pour your bottle down the drain?
I
after
did.
Saturday?
Yes. I mean, I drank almost a half a bottle of that rye stuff I told you about.
Yeah.
And I said, that's too much. And I poured the damn thing out and I said, Dave, don't ever send me whiskeys again. I will never buy whiskeys again. It is not helpful. So
you
it
should
took
at
me like
least-
3 days to recover. I'm not drunk and I'm happy. So
So
Yes.
so you're never drinking whiskey again.
no, I may eventually drink whiskey, but I don't want to. Here's the problem. I was sitting on the stream, the whiskey bottle and the glass are next to me. You know how Nick got where every now and then he would reach out, he would pour something into a glass. I can't do that. I kept doing that. Half a bottle later, I'm drunk as fuck.
Dude,
So, no, I don't want to do that anymore.
I had
like an
that.
AA meeting in here.
Well, I had
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Who's
Exactly.
making thanks for sharing? Who's making the coffee?
I had that
Yeah.
half a bottle Blanton's done by midnight Saturday, and I'm like, well, they kicked me off the show of my own show basically in about an hour from now. So
We'll do
It
it,
was-
tonight too, Dave, if you
No,
want.
it was going all right, and then I said, well, I'm kind of thirsty, so I went and got my Buffalo Trace, and then we walked off the show at 5:30 in the morning, and that half a bottle was gone. And yes, Sunday sucked, and I haven't
Oh, God,
had a
Dave,
drink since. But I've lost 6 pounds this week too, man.
I
So-
know. I was so sick, Dave. It was awful. It was awful. It took me 2 days to recover. So I'm grateful to be back and not drunk as fuck.
I was thinking of you guys the next day because when
It's
I logged
much easier to
onto
wake up
YouTube,
without alcohol in your body.
Yeah.
When I logged into YouTube the next day, I saw it was a 9.5 hour stream. I'm like, holy fuck! I left at
God,
like
it was-
1:30. How long
It
did
was
they go?
awful. It was
Well,
awful.
It was fun while you're here.
Oh, it's great, but it's awful. Dave, when you wake up and say, "Oh my god,"
It's
Dave,
literally
I
a
woke up
second
at
job.
12:45 on
I woke-
Sunday.
I woke up at-
12:45.
I woke up at 1, and all I wanted to do was go back to bed on the couch. But I
Yes,
didn't. I stayed up, and then like I know we told the stream we were going to do a stream that night, and I was like, no. And then Jim
way,
goes,
no.
Monday, we're talking Monday. Jim says, yeah, I knew if you didn't call me, I wasn't calling you after that stream. So it was a long one.
It was a long one. I didn't get up till like 2 in the afternoon or something.
Oh God,
you left-
we were all
You left it like a couple hours before we did.
I
Because-
didn't think you guys stayed on.
No.
After.
Me and Low Watermark talked for another hour with
Oh
Salty.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
after the
yeah.
stream ended. Yeah.
Salty's great, but it was
Yeah.
drunk and it was bad, and Jim was smart. Oh, it was cool though, but it was too much.
Yeah, after, maybe tomorrow night, because every day this week I've had 2 or 3 appointments minimum every day. Ugh. Nothing worse than having to get up at 6 in the morning when you're staying till like last night. We stayed up till almost midnight, Jim, which is fine. That's 5 hours. That's a lot of streaming. That's a Friday Night Tights old show. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah, except it didn't suck.
Ours sucked.
No,
no.
except-
There was a possibility there were some good jokes. That's what he's saying.
no, I said except it didn't suck.
Oh, ours
But
didn't suck.
Dave
Correct.
did suck.
Okay.
Jim said
I-
Dave did suck. Oh,
Yeah.
Jim, stop
I
being.
was a little confused. A little confused.
Wow, I'm getting dizzy. I got to stop doing that.
Okay.
Okay.
So tonight we're going to talk about a couple
We're
of
gonna-
things from World War II tactics after one was being prepared at the
They
end
both
of the
kind of
war.
started before the war ended.
Well, they were planning it.
Yeah.
Like they had thoughts, and Julio, you know, one of them we
Thoughts?
talked about last night
Thoughts.
was
Thoughts.
Morgenthau. We talked
Love
about that.
women who are thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, you said you wanted to do Gladio first, right?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to me. And then Project Gladio is the other thing that it's interesting, dude. What the West wanted to do after the war to it kind of felt like, Jim, they wanted to fight the war still, but do it undercover. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well, they wanted to fight a war, not against the same people.
No, I'm saying they wanted to fight a war against a big country that Patton said we should invade, and they killed him for it.
Well, he wasn't the only one. I mean, like Gladio started. So it looks like Gladio was Alan Dulles' who also project that he was also the guy that was on the Warren Commission and was behind the Bay of Pigs, who some people say probably killed Kennedy.
Exactly right, Dan Blackroyd. The Earth was smaller back then, and things were easier to control.
They had less water, right?
The water was getting exposed for what it was. It's a fake. It's a fake.
Well, Ben, they started planning Operation Gladio to target the Soviets in 1942. So I would say that's before the war ended.
That doesn't make sense, though. I mean, we were doing capture. Let's just see what this.
No, they started planning it. They concocted this is what
it.
we want to do. That's when the planning
So they
started.
were so confident in 1942 they were going to win the war.
Sure.
Jesus Christ.
And that they knew that after that they were going to want to go after the Soviets.
I have the slightest idea what we're talking about, so I'm looking forward to learning about it.
Yeah,
I'm with you, Julio. I'm learning stuff tonight.
Hey, that's how I feel in my 40K streams. But I like it.
Yes, you're right, Ben. The Soviets were allies that we did not tell anything about the atomic bomb, but we did tell the British about it.
No, but I mean they were our quote unquote out. But nobody likes Stalin.
Well, the enemy of your enemy is your friend. That's the bottom line there. They were also enemies of the Germans, so they were our friend until the Germans weren't our enemies anymore. And then it's like, oh wait, now you're my enemy
because of your politics, right? Your communism. We didn't want that. All right, let's see what we got here. I'll pull this up now. This is Mr. Alan Dulles, right?
Yeah, this is Alan Dulles. Now, this channel is a small channel that I found this on. It's an interesting video. He does a good job. He's only got 468 subs. So
what's the name of it? Put the link in the chat. Put the link in the chat.
Economics of Empire, and we'll say share and.
Because I'll go sub right now. If we're gonna play his video, I'll go sub. And chat, go sub. If you're on Twitter watching, please, click on the link and go. Well, you can't see the link. Get on YouTube and see the link. There we go. He's at 497, you said? Or 190?
468.
459. All right. So let's give this guy a sub, low watermark. There we go. Maybe we can get somebody else monetized.
Maybe.
We're fighting the wrong enemy. This was the conclusion Alan Dulles reached in 1942 when the German infantry battled amidst the ice cold of the Russian steppes. Dulles was the Swiss director of the US Office of Strategic Services, the OSS. He had been informed through Vatican messengers about a desire from senior officials from the SS that the Nazi government was interested in negotiating a separate peace with the United States. The aim of such reconciliation was to allow the Third Reich to focus entirely on defeating the Soviets. The SS was taken aback to discover that Dulles not only supported the Nazi proposal, but also asserted the necessity of a robust Germany as a defense against Bolshevism, the Leninist faction of the Communist Party that had taken charge of Russia in 1917. Dulles conveyed his
Is that where Hitler was staying during the war?
In peace negotiations.
Eagle's Nest?
Is this the Eagle's Nest? If this is the Eagle's Nest, he didn't stay there. It was given to him as some kind of like a present on his birthday or something. Like I think in 1938 or 39 or
But he was
before
there
the
a
war
lot.
started. He would go there like vacation there. You know, I don't know. It was-
They said he wasn't in Berlin a lot.
I,
You know,
I've watched every episode of World War II in color and The World at War and all that stuff. I don't know what the fuck he was doing.
he was.
It's just like Aaron. It's just like Aaron Imholt. So
Yeah.
same thing.
He's the guy's like, what the fuck have I got my country into?
It's where he went to go paint pictures of German shepherds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Wait,
mountain
German
retreat.
shepherds as Drex sees them? German shepherds as Drex sees them?
I think he would sit in here and he would do a bunch of meth and peek out the windows and see if anybody was coming to get him.
Yeah, and then he'd
Yeah.
have like his girlfriend there with him, right?
Ava Braun.
Paper. Yeah. He was painting. Yes, those beautiful mountainscapes.
Supposedly there was a golden elevator that goes all the way up.
And gives you a golden shower when you get
Was that how they
up.
got up as an elevator? Like the
That's how,
entrance?
that's how Hitler got up.
Wow.
Was an
That's how
elevator.
Hitler got it up? Oh,
Yeah.
Jim knows everything.
Before Viagra, there was the golden elevator.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Negotiations convinced that the Soviets represented a much more significant menace to the United States and West.
Do you think it's still there?
It looks
the-
like
the-
they're
the
flying
people-
over
yeah,
it now.
sure.
I'm
know,
thinking
the-
this is it.
That's
people
pretty
go hang
current.
out. Yeah, do people go hang out there? Is it like no one
Probably
goes there
museum.
because it's probably a museum?
I would
So
think
some-
so.
Oh, it's the best of them. You know, the people who are, on top of everything, and there
It's
they
in-
are.
Ben, it's in your country, right? It's in Austria. Is this a museum now, the Eagle's Nest? You probably hang out there and fucking paint
Eagle's
yourself,
Nest.
don't you? You fucking paint double S's on white paper that are black.
It's got a different name. They call it something else that means
look
eagle's
at
nest.
that.
I don't know. The
I mean-
Varkenschwarkenurgen.
Yeah, but
The
look at
Wiener
that.
Schnitzel.
Yeah.
Hadoken.
The Hadoken.
Can't wait for the fellowship meet up there.
Dan.
But don't let Eric call the police. Don't let Eric call the police at all.
Oh my God, that's funny. Can't wait for
Is
them.
is Ryan going to
Kelstein
get
house?
Taco Bell DoorDash there?
Mm. Yes. DoorDash. Yep.
Ah,
Mansion Weinstein is the Disney castle. Oh, okay.
that's in
Stability
Germany.
than the Nazis.
Look at that.
Dulles had reservations about
It
the
is
Nazis,
beautiful there.
such as the ambition
yeah.
for a 1,000-year Reich,
Why is
but he
everybody
acknowledged
bald?
their Christian affiliation. Furthermore,
I don't know.
they shared a common Western heritage with Americans. Most crucially, the Nazis endorsed capitalism and upheld the right to private property.
Beautiful.
In Bern,
The
Dulles
Nazis
held
endorsed
meetings with-
capitalism?
They were socialists. I
They
mean,
were
they
socialists.
wanted to. Everything was, like there was you owned, but it had to be for whatever the business had to be for the government's purposes.
But they wanted their money too.
Yeah.
Right, but it wasn't like, could anybody start a business? I mean, was that a thing, or do you have to
I
do
think
it?
you had to be a Nazi to start a business.
But I'm saying, if you started a business as a Nazi, could it be like, Joe's Burger House, or did it have to be something that the Nazi thought would help promote the government?
I think it had to be something they needed for whatever they were doing. Like you couldn't just, like you couldn't start a business doing trans surgeries if they didn't want to do trans surgeries.
Well, they were already doing that at those camps.
Let's not
those
talk about
retreats.
camps today.
Jim got in trouble last night.
Ixnay on the Mengele.
Jim got so much shit last night about the camps. Like,
I watched Jim give camps, talking about camps, and Julio was fighting the good fight. Said, Jim, stop talking about camps. And Jim said, no, Julio, I'm going to talk about camps. Damn you.
I know my place. I'm on the bottom square for a reason. I was kind of jumping.
No, I told Dave that I tuned into you guys last night, and because he asked, why weren't you on? And I said, and I loved it because Julio was fighting the good fight, and then Jim is you fuck you. It was wonderful. I love Jim. I love Julio. You guys did fantastic.
I don't think I ever said fuck
Thank
you
you.
once.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
well,
always-
it
you
was
always have to
in
have
the
a foil.
expression.
it was
Okay.
in the expression, yes.
Yeah. You guys were fantastic last night. Love you guys. It was amazing.
Here you go, Jim. Ben just sent me this map of castles, or not castles, but Adolf Hitler's headquarters. So these red dots are headquarters used by Hitler during World War II, and then the gray are never used by Hitler, but intended to, but they were used by others. So right here is the Eagle's Nest down here, right on the German-Austrian border.
Bergdorf. Yeah, Bergdorf
Yeah.
Hotel and Eagle. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Berghoff. I'm sorry, Berghoff.
Yeah. So, phew. Axis, country annexed by Axis. Look at all that territory that they just annexed for themselves.
Mhm.
Good Lord. Good Lord. Thanks, Ben. I think Ben's on a fucking bus somewhere and he's got time to pull this up. It's crazy.
Last I checked, it was his grandma's house. It's like her lake house. It looked like the Eagle's Nest, to be
I
honest. with
told
you.
him, I said, life is hard, isn't it, dude? Life
It's
is really
beautiful.
hard. Yeah.
Nazi General Reinhard Goering, anticipating the imminent defeat of the Third Reich, Goering proposed the formation of covert guerrilla squads comprised of Hitler Youth and devoted fascist enthusiasts, referred to as stay-behind units. These units could serve as a police force to counteract a potential post-war Soviet invasion. The members of these clandestine forces were labelled werewolves. Individuals who would assume regular
so did he
civilian
just say
roles during the day.
the Germans came up with this first? Like,
The Germans had a plan to do the same thing that the Germans had a plan to fight with Hitler Youth and other people that they were calling werewolves that were going to attack allies and stuff. And I think for a while it did
well,
happen.
he said they were going to fight back the Russians if they tried to invade Germany. That's what he said.
Well, I think it was that was designed for both sides, but then that got co-opted into Gladio. Those people at some point.
Could you imagine? You just got your fucking ass handed to you in a war mode, but you're going to leave it up to the Hitler Youth to fight the Russians?
They threw everything at the wall and see what would stick, Dave. They were backed into a corner. Like some of the most advanced fighter planes in the world, the first jets, right, that were seen in combat. They're setting up, minimally trained pilots in those things because that's what they had left. They didn't care. It was the last gasp of the emperor, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
And act as communist killers at night. Each unit, Goering explained, had access to concealed stockpiles containing food, radio equipment, weapons, and explosives. Operation Gladio. Convinced that the Soviets intended to seize control of Germany and Western Europe after the war's end, Dulles believed it was imperative for the OSS to establish contact with these stay-behind armies and provide them with tactical and strategic support in a strategy called Operation Gladio. In addition to organising the fortification of the werewolves, Dulles actively worked on brokering a separate peace deal with the Nazis, excluding the Soviet Union. When Stalin learned about these negotiations, he angrily criticized his US allies, accusing them of acting in bad faith and betraying their alliance. In response, President Franklin D. Roosevelt dismissed these accusations as vile misrepresentations of the actual situation. Gladio forces in Italy were organised into 40 primary groups, 10 specialised in sabotage, 6 each in espionage, propaganda and escape tactics, and 12 in guerrilla activities. A German and US collaboration saw a Sardinian training
Can you imagine you're one of the guys trained in one of these groups, but they don't train you in escape? What are they? It's like, that's weird.
No, you don't need that, dog. You're gonna win.
Right.
Escape tactics. So this is interesting. Dulles tried to negotiate a peace with the Nazis, and
he wasn't the only one.
But who's
I
he to
believe, what was
negotiate
his
peace?
name?
Isn't that Roosevelt's job?
No, it was the CIA. You know, they were OSS. There was predecessor CIA. We're making
And
contacts.
Mr. Kennedy, who was, you
Yes.
know, he was
Yes.
there, so he did
Yeah,
it too.
Kennedy Sr., Joe Kennedy tried. Also, one of the royal family of England, a brother of the king or a cousin or
Yeah,
something,
yep.
was doing back deal negotiations with them. And one of somebody, what the fuck is his name? A dark-haired dude. I can't remember
Rudolph
his name.
Hess.
Hess. He
Yes,
flew
yes.
to England to try and there you
Nice,
go, Julio.
Julio.
Nice pull.
Yeah.
And he
To
got-
broker a peace.
to broker a peace, and he ended up being held prisoner until after the war and then executed.
Yes, as he should have been because he was lying. So
Fucking rat.
rat
They
face.
had to whack him.
Whack him.
But not
know
in
what
the
he
San
said back?
Francisco sense.
You know what he said back?
But he
Julio?
didn't shit on the streets as they do in San Francisco.
What's that, Dave?
You know what he said back?
Mm-mm.
My bad.
Magma.
Like the fucking
what he
morning
said
suit.
Suck my balls. Oh shit. This is why I don't watch
Filled
TV. I would
way.
rather be on stream talking.
Germany, France, and
watermark.
Austria. By 1946, as the OSS transformed into the Central Intelligence Group, the precursor to the CIA, numerous Gladio units were strategically positioned across Western Europe. Covert funding challenges. However, a seemingly insurmountable problem persisted. Gladio, being a covert operation, had not been authorized by an act of Congress or mandated by the Pentagon. Its existence was known to only a few federal officials, and the original funding of $200 million originating from the Rockefeller and Mellon foundations was totally insufficient. While in Kunming, a town in the Yunnan province of South China,
So, and anyone noticed there was two names mentioned in there,
Rockefeller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and Mellon.
Yeah.
Bankers.
Yep.
Oh, bankers. Oh, why would bankers have anything to do with money? I don't understand. Yeah, what does bankers have to do with money?
I don't know. I mean, I guess to draw kind of a parallel to today, that'd be like saying, I don't know, BlackRock and
Vanguard.
A shooter and BlackRock, a BlackRock shooter in a video. No, that would not be a thing.
So
Jim, no. Jim, bad Jim.
Saying.
Bad Jim.
You know, history rhymes, man.
American spooks
YouTube's deleting
observed that
comments?
General Chiang Kai-shek, leader of the
possible.
Kuomintang,
Chiang Kai-shek,
KMT, and
yes.
the Chinese National Army, were involved in selling opium to Chinese addicts to raise funds for their planned war against Mao Zedong's communist forces.
Oh, look.
Covert
look.
US assistance was being provided to the KMT. The same approach was agreed by senior US and British officials, including General William Wild Bill Donovan. Target market. Wild Bill had devised plans for the creation of a post-war Central Intelligence Agency, and the opium strategy offered a guaranteed method for securing covert funding for Gladio and other black ops. The notion was that the new agency could generate immediate cash flow by supplying heroin to...
I'm pretty sure too that this was when they devised for like, I think it was like United Fruit Company or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And then they were used to like launder the money and to supply, and that's where
Was that down in
That's-
Panama? They
that-
pulled
down
that
in
business? Yeah.
right, and that's where a lot of this drug
Revenue came in?
distributions. Well, because they couldn't have CIA agents standing on the street selling drugs to people. You know, that would be wrong.
Why not?
Allegedly.
It's not
Allegedly.
a sloped roof. It's not a sloped roof. So
I know.
So they got other people involved and started basically criminal organizations in other countries to do it. And they were just a supply, you know, and then them other countries eventually developed other drugs like, I don't know, cocaine.
Cocaine? Yeah.
Or fentanyl.
Yeah.
Today,
stuff that Nick likes. Okay.
Oh,
the African American communities in America's ghettos. Opiates had already proven popular amidst Harlem's jazz scene, with an increasing demand among black musicians in New York, where a single hit could cost up to $100.
And there's a movie about the, if anyone has ever heard of the movie called Midnight
that a-
Express, or no?
Yeah.
Is it-
No,
Yeah.
not
No,
the
Midnight
one where they
Express.
beat his feet till.
yeah. And The French Connection is another one, which is about
Oh, that's cool.
the smuggling of drugs into the U.S. through like from Sicilians and Turkey and stuff. And it's also in The Godfather, if you remember the
Yeah,
Turk, you know, the Sicilian Turk guy bringing it in, because this is all interconnected. You know,
It's dirty
Can you-
business.
dirty business.
Can you buy cocaine in South America
I don't know. You could get
legally? I mean, legally, like in stores.
Like at Costco.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I mean, you can
Probably
get
not.
a lot of stuff at Mexican pharmacies, but I don't think cocaine is one of them. But no. I mean, you could. I mean, there was cocaine and Coca-Cola until the 50s, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why grandma had so much energy.
But
And,
none of us
listen.
got to drink that stuff. Come on. Damn it.
for the record,
If I go back in time, I want to drink that shit.
the only if I'm not mistaken, the Coca-Cola Corporation has huge fields in Hawaii where they grow coca plants specifically for Coca-Cola, because they still use the coca leaves to make Coca-Cola. They just take the
The cocaine
drug
out
part
of
out of
Yeah,
it
yeah.
now. It's
Well, that's
not-
lame.
Which really sucks. Fuck them.
yeah. But they're the only ones that are authorized under, because there's a special exemption in the law for them only for having coca leaves.
Yep.
Anyway, there's a little tidbit of information that I have somewhere rattling around.
I
in
love
that
the
empty
Elvis
brain of
Presley
mine.
movies where he's, the son of a rich, baron in Hawaii, and that's good stuff.
Maybe that's why he was in Hawaii. I didn't even think about that. He
Exactly,
loved Hawaii. He was
exactly.
running around going, Coca, Coca,
Coca,
Coca.
Coca, Coca. Yeah, exactly.
He did sweat a lot.
It's okay.
That is true.
$100. If heroin could be made available to inner city dealers at exceptionally low prices, the market could be monopolized, leading to an
And on another note, I know we talked about this once on the House of the Dragon things, but for the longest time, I always thought they were saying milk of the puppy. But then finally I heard it correctly, because it's what it sounded. It's milk of the poppy. So basically they're talking about poppy, like heroin or something.
Probably
So I was like,
opium.
why-
Yeah.
Yeah, why milk of the puppy? What the fuck is that? Some kind of weird shit?
So are these poppy things? Is
Yes.
this where the stuff comes from?
Correct. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
fun
never seen
fact
that.
for anybody, if you don't know this or not, but poppy seeds that are on like bagels and on like, the
Yeah,
hot
yeah.
dog buns,
Yeah.
those do have trace amounts of
Yeah.
opium in them. So if you eat enough of that shit, you will pop hot on a drug test.
Yeah. You got to eat a lot of it, but you will pop.
And it's got to be within like 72 hours or something,
Right.
48 hours.
But you got to eat like 5 bags of bagels.
No, you can eat like,
a
those
lot.
ones with the black seeds on it, like those
Yeah.
buns. If you eat 3 hot dogs with those seeds on it, you will pop hot for opium.
Oh my God, that was Nick's daughter. Now I get it. Now I get it.
Yeah, it was a
You
special
mean it wasn't
shampoo
her
they were
fucking
using.
ADHD or medication that makes you test positive? Oh,
It's
couldn't have been
possible.
that?
I don't know.
It's
Could have been.
possible, Yeah.
Mm,
Good.
crazy.
Anyways, moving on.
Moving on.
exponential increase in demand. They realized there was the
Demand.
potential for a drug epidemic, but thought that
All right,
this would be
chat. We've only
contained
got this
to
guy up
those
to
in low
473. Let's
socioeconomic
get him up some
strata.
more.
They reasoned that Middle
What's up
America
to this
would
guy?
remain unaffected. Paul Hellawell, the son of a prominent English cloth buyer, held a position in the inner circle of the OSS.
He
Other
needs better
affluent
glasses.
American figures in the circle included Henry Sturgeon.
Are those what they consider horn-rimmed glasses?
It was not good.
No,
it was.
like Ruth Buzzy used to wear.
Ruth Buzzy. Ruth Buzzy was cool.
Your books are late.
Just Morgan, son of J.P. Morgan Jr.
Pierce
Oh, what do you
Morgan.
know? Son of J.P. Morgan, another banker. What do you know?
What do you know?
Coincidence.
Oh my God.
Wow.
It is weird, right?
Was J.P. Morgan one of the railroad guys too? Is that how he started?
He might have started in oil
Or
or,
was he
something.
oil?
Or
Yep.
I know
Morgan-
Rockefeller was oil. Morgan might have been oil
Morgan's
too.
oil
and then-
too.
Yeah. One was like oil, one was kerosene or something, right? I mean, one of the two. I mean, remember kerosene was a big deal. That's all that they used in houses back in the old days, man. Kerosene killed a lot of fucking people too. That shit is not very easy to control in the home.
Oh,
I thought he was on the Gong Show. JP.
oh, this
JP
fucking
Morgan,
J-
right?
JP Morgan. JP Morgan was
guy.
cool and he was sexy, and I love JP Morgan. So I love somebody who knows who JP Morgan is. Thank you,
Of course.
Julio.
You're
And
welcome.
model, very true. Jim Jones had some cool glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Filled
just
with
don't drink
tasty
what's
libations.
yeah, just don't drink what's inside of them.
They were
Don't
like
drink the
they were like
flavor
you
aid.
know early sunglass
Yeah.
prescription stuff. They were awesome, man.
This is spicy. I'm sleepy.
But I'm not thirsty, Daddy Jim. Yeah, you're drinking the fucking Kool-Aid, bitch. You've been drinking it for 5 years. You're gonna drink it today too. Holy shit!
Look at this board member of J.P.
Didn't
Morgan.
they kill
and
a
Company.
senator when they went down there to visit? Isn't that what happened?
A congressman, I think,
a
got killed. Maybe
yeah.
a senator or congressman, and that's what made the government step in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
went down there
They,
to
like-
visit and fucking
and they machine
killed
gunned
his
the plane
ass.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then the government that's when they decided to poison everybody or whatever because they were going to get cracked down.
Yeah,
You can't hear me?
yeah, we hear you.
We can hear
Oh,
you.
I
they
thought you said I
decided
can't
they
hear
would
you.
not trust Jim because Jim was the government agent on that. So they said, "No, Jim, we can't do this. No,
I'm
Jim.
not a Fed.
No, Jim."
That's
Nicholas
not what the chat
Roosevelt,
says.
Paul Mellon, son of Andrew Mellon,
Oh, look, another.
David K. Bruce, Andrew
Wow,
Mellon's
Mellon,
son-in-law,
there was a
and members
Roosevelt.
of the
Look at all these
Vanderbilt,
people,
Carnegie,
wow.
DuPont,
Good
and
Lord,
Warren
look at
them.
families.
Wow.
Selling heroin to the black jazz subculture would ensure a continuous
right,
revenue
stop,
stream
stop,
for
stop.
intelligence
Go
funding.
ahead. Go ahead.
My God. So the first time I saw this, because I'm not a drug peer person, but I saw a Sherlock Holmes thing where he has a spoon and it's
Yeah.
boiling and he sticks a needle into it. Who in the freaking whoever would stick a needle into a boiling batch of goo and then stick that into themselves? What the fuck? Jim, I know you said I've done plenty of coke or
Not this.
no, but this is heroin, right? This is
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think they
They're talking
cook
about
it.
heroin, so I hope it's
Yeah, they're talking
heroin.
about her. They cooked that to get rid of the impurities, supposedly to cook them out of it. Now I don't know. I thought that this is not going to be a good thing to talk about, but
no.
I thought they're supposed to use like something to suck up the excess liquid in there, and then there's would be like something that kind of looks like a booger, and then that would be
But
the
you know,
actual
I mean-
drug. And
But we all look at this and we think about the heroin chic models, the supermodels,
Yeah.
How could they be doing this shit and be supermodels?
well, they might be
This is
snorting it.
gross.
I mean, there's people that snort it. I mean, you could smoke
Yeah,
opium.
I
It's
guess.
like all the opium that back, prior to this, when the opium was for say like the railroads, and it was coming in from China directly with the
China
railroads.
stuff, Yep.
It was like not black tar heroin but it was like a pure opium that was coming, different grades of
God,
opium
that is
coming from
so
and they would
gross.
smoke it, and they would have opium dens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The orange tents.
And then this was when they started like going, if we do this to it, it makes it a lot stronger, and then you can inject it or smoke it or snort it or.
You
I had
gotta
a
get
roommate-
you have to get the
Go ahead.
opium medium rare so you can get baked.
I know it's so gross though, I mean, and people died because they injected bubbles into their veins and
Sure.
God, it's so stupid. But
Yeah, they
nobody here is advising against
No, never do-
using drugs.
Just say
etc.
no to
No.
drugs.
Just say no. Exactly. Nancy is here somewhere. She says, just say no.
I just heard what the guy said though. He said the black jazz subculture financed this shit. Look,
No, that's who they wanted
targeted with this
targeted to
stuff.
give it
Yeah,
to
but
because
they
they didn't
didn't
like
do
them.
it. Yeah.
First they gave it to them for free, and they said, "Wow, man, that's cool. That's hippie, man. We were smoking some jazz cabbage, but now we're gonna do this."
So Why would they target them? Like, why, if you're like, we have a big master plan, find me a trumpet player and we're going to sell them heroin? Like,
well, because at
Yes.
that point in time, there was a good portion of the people that ruled the country that thought those people were
less
not really
than,
people, let's say.
less than others.
I see.
Less than
No.
others.
There was
All right,
still
I
a
got you.
pervasive view that, well, you know, I like that clip I was going to play from The Godfather.
Which we
Right.
should still play.
Right.
So that's
No.
No, Dave don't want to play that. You know, when the guy stands up and says, "We'll keep it to the
yeah. The
People.
people
Maria.
and the people and the people with the N and the people with the this and the yes.
yeah."
I
all
don't know
that.
why Dave doesn't want to play that on his
You know,
channel.
I don't think
You know,
he
I
used
don't-
that
I-
word. He just said he
It's
called
the
him a
40
specific
second lyric.
name, but it was it's.
But Dave's channel
still
could
an-
use to be struck, 9 times out of 10. Hey, Dave.
We got hit for that Waylon Jennings or Merle Haggard song last night.
Yeah, can you imagine Merle Haggard? We can't play the N word, but we can't get
And
struck
that
for
wasn't
Merle
even
Haggard.
him singing, was it? That was somebody
No.
else singing his song, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I don't know.
I had a cover of Purple Rain on my channel, and I got struck by Prince's, whatever the fuck his
By a cover.
organization is.
A cover.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a solo. In my band, the band, we used to take breaks between sets, and when we took breaks, I would stand up with my acoustic and do a solo song.
Mhm.
I did Purple Rain. I did In the Air Tonight. So I put it up on YouTube, and it got struck by whatever the fuck Prince's.
That's lame.
See, I don't see how I would have.
It
Well,
But
was
but you-
so good, it sounded just like it. So the algorithm picked it up.
There you go.
nice humble brag there, Julio.
You got to put that
I
out
didn't
on
catch that at
some
first.
other channel,
It's
I
still
didn't catch
very
that
kind
at
of
first.
private though.
Then afterwards, he had pancakes.
And play basketball. That's right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You remember that from Dave Chappelle's
Oh,
show?
that fucking show is still so good, man.
It's
Yes.
the funniest fucking show. One of the funniest shows of all time.
Yes, it
amazing.
was. It was great.
Love it.
Gladio throughout the post-war era. The Truman administration had not allocated funds for covert post-war
Phil
operations in the federal budget, making this strategy the sole means to acquire the services of foreign agents, politicians, and assassins without the approval of elected officials. From Sicily to the CIA. During the Prohibition era, the Italian mafia, run by Charles Lucky Luciano, seized control of the New York docks through force to supply Manhattan with scotch from Scotland, rum from the Caribbean, and whiskey from Canada. After Prohibition, Luciano turned to importing heroin from Chinese warlords, refining it in Corsican mafia-controlled laboratories. The product reaching cities like Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and San Francisco was less than 3% pure. Before World War II, the US had fewer than 20,000 heroin addicts, and global production was under 1,000 kilos annually. Its use was primarily among Asian immigrants and black musicians, as many mafia members considered drug peddling immoral
Ben's
and
got a good
unmanly.
point.
However, Lucky Luciano defied this tradition, establishing the heroin trade with Turkish and Chinese opium merchants, reserving some for the women in his brothels. Following the successful World
gross.
War II invasion of Italy, the mafia gained control of Italian ports, setting the stage for the implementation of Halliwell's post-war intelligence agency funding plan. This plan hinged on utilizing Lucky Luciano's narcotics distribution network in inner-city America. The plan was discussed and agreed with Halliwell and Luciano
the mob
in Havana
hated
in
drugs.
November 1946, while some mafiosi
Salvatore Lucana, Lucky Luciano, had previous convictions for heroin peddling prior to taking command of the organized crime. Him and a man by the name of Meyer Lansky were importing heroin during, they saw it as a way to keep making money as Prohibition was ending. It was later on, I think the whole no drug policy kind of came into effect after I think they got fucked over by feds at some point, and when they other families, they said don't get, they started, also had to do with the crime. Like they started the jail sentences for drug possessions started to get up there, and it was like, hey, it's one thing if you get sentenced to 2 years or 5 years, guys will ride that out, but you give somebody 20, 30 years, they're going to start talking.
I think it's about money. The mafia is no different than the bankers that we were just talking about. It's the same thing. Where's the money? Always follow the money. It sounds cliche, but it's true.
Trump has so much power since he got shot. Watch what happens. Look what the ladies are doing now.
Oh, she's grabbing herself by the pussy.
he put that thought in her head. She's like, oh, it's Donald. Thanks, old man David.
What the fuck, man? That is weird.
Gotta pull that short dress up to
you know who that better not be behind him? I didn't even look to see if that's Bruce Jenner behind him.
That's true. I was thinking it was the Democrat National Convention. Some chick was grabbing her junk.
Ugh. That's pretty
I can't believe
funny,
that chick
Dave.
is diddling her bean on national TV.
Right behind the president.
Nice. Hand up.
His fault. It's his fault.
Anyways.
She's got a yeast infection in Motto.
Got a little extra cheese on the taco.
Oh God!
Need a price check on
that.
Vagisil. Vagisil I9.
Oh my God! Come on! I just finished eating.
We don't need to hear this, people. We're better than this. We would never stoop to their level because we would not do that. Yes, we would.
No, I'm really not.
Initially opposed Luciano's plan, dismissing drug dealings as beneath them. The prevailing sentiment was to provide heroin to black communities was acceptable, given they were indifferent to the consequences. In September 1947, the CIA was established, and by November, the first Italian transported heroin arrived in Harlem. For the test run, 200 kilos of heroin sourced from Schiaparelli, a reputable Italian
200
pharmaceutical
kilos.
company,
Holy shit.
was shipped by the Sicilian mob, concealed in crates of oranges. Half the
Even
oranges
Jim
were
can't
wax
order that
made,
much.
concealing 100 grams of pure heroin.
No shit.
Additional drugs would be hidden in sardine cans, cheese wheels, and olive oil barrels. The shipment would reach Cuba, where the Traficante clan controlled laboratories would cut the heroin before it was sent
Look at
to
that
New
car.
York for distribution
Awesome.
Nice.
in Harlem's
Look at that.
jazz clubs.
Back when we had
Jazz
proper
clubs
cars.
emerged as ideal
Yeah.
venues for heroin peddling, ensnaring some of the nation's prominent black musicians, including Billie Holiday, Theodore Fats Navarro, and Charlie Parker, who
Is that a
succumbed
pit
to
bull?
addiction.
Yes,
some
it
died
was.
from
It's
overdose.
amazing.
Unbelievable.
Early
Drug
breeding.
They didn't
trade
think of them
Chinese
then.
sector, as evidenced by the fact that there were no
They're actually called American Staffordshire Terriers,
Yeah, all right.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Jim.
and I have a beautiful one
And
sitting
Jim
right
loves
there
them.
who wouldn't
and
hurt
he
a
thought
fly.
they're wonderful, and he wants to marry
on, here we go.
one. And no,
Well, actually,
well, actually,
Actually, they're called American
Actually.
Staffordshire Terriers, and I have a very pretty one sitting there. She's a beautiful girl and wouldn't hurt a fly. You can see on my channel, I have videos of her playing with kitty cats.
and
Yeah.
ripping them to shreds.
I like
Not
the
in a
blue.
million years.
I like the blue ones. I like the blue
Oh,
pits.
blue nose. I like red noses. I think blue noses are a little more meaner. In my every experience I've had, they seem to be meaner.
My
But I
dogs
don't
are
know. That's
my dogs are like chicken McNuggets for pit bulls. I got Boston Terriers, so
Ooh.
Oh, somebody has to eat those. Yeah.
no major US drug busts from 1947 to 1967, despite the surge in heroin addicts rising from 20,000 to 150,000.
Imagine if they
The source
ran
of
these
the black
stats
money for
today.
heroin
Oh,
continued
20,000 to
be supplied
150,000.
the
Now it's
Sicilian mob
150
by
million.
Schiaparelli, the
well, now we're having 100 and something thousand deaths a year.
A year,
Yeah.
exactly.
I saw 360 something thousand last year.
I don't know. It's over 100,000. I know that it's up. It's a lot.
Stupid.
Just don't do it. It's not that hard, but whatever.
it's almost
Well,
like
I agree.
unscrupulous acts targeted a specific group of people, right?
Yeah.
Right, with low
I mean,
impulse control.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, now it's targeted everybody though, because they're cutting cocaine with fentanyl. They're cutting pills that they're saying is, because people want to buy like Vicodins or Norcos or what is it? The other stuff, the Xanaxes and stuff on the street, and they're
Hey,
putting
Jim.
fentanyl in it. Adderall. They're just putting fentanyl in
Adderall.
everything.
What do you think about fentanyl? I mean, I don't know anything about it. I know you probably don't either, but what do you think about what is fentanyl? Why?
It is a medical. It was developed for use in hospitals for like severe pain and putting people to sleep to slow your breathing down and knock you out, basically. Like it's
So
what they would.
it's so addictive that
It's similar to like, it's not that I don't know if it's addictive. I'm sure it probably is, but I think if you got to that point where you're addicted to it, you're just basically playing with a knife, waiting to kill yourself.
Yeah.
In Minecraft, but yeah, it's like, I don't know if you heard of propofol, which is what Michael Jack. It's kind
Michael
of
Jackson. Yeah.
and I think Prince also, if I'm maybe, it's kind of the same thing. Fentanyl, propofol, it's like the same thing.
So
almost.
What's the one that
a
makes
super jacked up drug that just like kills
That
you.
should only be administered in a hospital.
It's like Russian
Yes.
roulette opioid.
Okay, so and it's obviously a whole lot less or a whole lot easier to get. Because why are they cutting it with it?
Because it's cheap. It's super cheap.
Fentanyl, if I'm not mistaken, is synthetic. It is made
synthetic, yeah.
Yeah, it's not made with any. So it's just created in a lab with chemicals. So the supply is unlimited as long as you can get the chemicals, the base chemicals.
And if you're like a fentanyl lab making this shit for drug dealers, you might not even be making it right. And that's what's killing people, or they're putting too much in when they mix it or whatever.
Well, yeah,
they're that powerful. They are killing people. It's just it's crazy. You don't kill your purchasers.
You would think that
They
the
don't know.
cartels wouldn't want to do it. They gotta know. They have to know.
Well, allegedly, what I hear is there's a lot of the stuff. Obviously, from what we've heard, it's manufactured in China, and they can't import it necessarily directly in the U.S. So it'll go into Canada or it'll go into Mexico, and then they'll bring it up through the border. So that's another
Not
problem.
through the
with
wall in Mexico. I mean, nobody can get through the wall in Mexico.
It's
It's
an impregnable
impossible.
border.
There was actually they've been cracking down on the labs making the chemicals and stuff in China, supposedly, and so they've moved to like Myanmar and some other areas that are having like problems to China controls those places.
Yeah,
but that's where they're making them.
And if you're China and you offer a country, hey, we'll build this port for you, we'll do it free of charge. You just have to pay us back slowly, and then they default on their loan. And
now
then they
the
take
state.
control of it, and then they just move the shit through how they want.
Through. Yeah.
This could be payback for the whole opium stuff that the British did to the Chinese in the 1800s. I don't know.
Kwai Chang Kang. I mean, Kung Fu. I mean, it was terrible.
Ching Chong, Chop Suey, all that.
I'm going to wander the earth and look for Narcan.
That's a pretty
Italian
picture. What are we looking
pharmaceutical
at?
Giant. Luciano and the mafia boss Don Carlo orchestrated a network of businesses in Palermo, including a candy factory producing chocolates not with cherries or cream, but pure heroin. From Cuba, the heroin was cut with sugar
so I'm
before its
giving my
distribution to
grandma
New Orleans,
I'm
Miami,
giving my
and
grandma
New
these
York.
things. Great. Hey, grandma, take this little chocolate here. Okay.
No,
they were destroying the chocolate when it got to Cuba, and that's where they broke out the heroin, right?
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
It was cream. It was instead of cream filled, it was heroin filled.
Like if there was that documentary called Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they had like the certain containers that had the stamps on it that had the stuff in it. That way they knew. And believe me, they weren't letting anything slip through. They knew what was coming and how much. And if it was unaccounted for, somebody was getting at best, fingers chopped off.
Yeah.
And
I missed the heroin coconut in the Whitman sampler.
Yeah.
I love the coconut one. That was great.
Yeah. No wonder.
This might explain why people are addicted to chocolate.
I ate this box of chocolates, then I cleaned the whole house and went for a 10K run.
And slept for a week.
Yeah.
Right.
CIA secured drug routes through ties to the mafia-influenced International Longshoremen's Association and collaboration.
It probably doesn't hurt to say that there was probably a reason that J. Edgar Hoover denied that there was a mafia and denied there was organized crime, because more than likely he was talking to Dulles and Bill Donovan, and they knew what was happening, and Hoover didn't really seem to care too much about what happened to a certain community. We'll just put it that
Whatever that community was, that's right.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. The bass playing community.
Operated with
Exactly.
mafia-affiliated trucking
The underground bass playing community.
facilitated by the likes of
People
Jim
like
Hoffa.
Julio. Yeah.
The Vatican
exactly.
Bank funneled the CIA's black money for mob collaboration
Black
through
money?
ecclesiastical organizations such as Catholic Action. To sustain
Catholics
the
are
heroin
behind
network
everything.
during the Cold War, sources
Yes.
for opium had to be secured. The raw product refined and
Well, at this time, the Catholic Church was very opposed to communism, unlike now where the Pope is a communist.
But they were
New US
hiding from
markets
priests
developed.
that were not so hiding from people, little people.
Well,
Whoever
not get
those
in-
little people, whoever those little people are,
Let's-
short people,
let's not get into that. It's a touchy subject.
short people got no,
No reason to live.
Short people got. Jim
Wow,
knows
that
the
was-
song.
Oh,
I
know
love
the
that
song.
song.
It was- yeah.
Short people, yeah.
Lucky Luciano formed a partnership with Samuel Khoury, a Syrian opium merchant, establishing a flow of raw opium from Turkey to Beirut, then to Marseille for heroin production. The CIA protected the heroin shipping route from Marseille through to Cuba. Simultaneously, the CIA collaborated with the KMT to create a drug route from Burma to Marseille. The World Commerce Corporation was established and involved wealthy figures like Nelson Rockefeller. This facilitated arms deals with underworld groups, including the KMT, allowing for the exchange of weapons for opium. Opium was transported from the mountainous regions of Burma and Laos by civil air transport to Bangkok. The planes returned loaded with weapons and poppy field support. In Bangkok, the Director General of Thailand's National Police utilized his officers to load the product onto Sea Supply Incorporated, a mysterious shipping company and CIA front run by Helliwell. The drug trade became so lucrative that Thailand abandoned its anti-opium campaign. As heroin inundated the Western world, the CIA, led by spokesmen like George White at the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, falsely attributed blame to Chairman Mao and the People's Republic of China, accusing them of orchestrating the movement of significant opium quantities to Bangkok. Thereafter, President Nixon launched a 10-point plan in 1969 to reduce illegal drug use, particularly in New York, where the heroin epidemic had become severe. Despite this, the numbers continued to grow, and by 1971, the US had over 500,000 heroin addicts, generating a cash flow of $12 billion per annum. A government survey revealed over 3 million Americans admitted to using heroin at least once, and 41% of drug-related deaths were linked to heroin. In Saigon, so much opium flowed that 30% of US servicemen in Vietnam became heroin addicts.
Jim,
Some
here's a
of this
question I have
heroin
about all this, right? So it's been over there for centuries, right? It's been just part of their culture forever, right? So that they're not abusing it like we did when we got it. Like did they give us in a different format? I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
the opium that the Chinese were using was opium that you smoked. There was some strong stuff, but it was basically, you wouldn't die from it because you would smoke it and you were ingesting it in such a slow way
Right.
that it would basically put you to sleep.
it was like
Yeah,
their form of marijuana, kind
Well,
of.
then
Yeah, you would just,
then you turn into heroin and it changes the game.
yeah,
You know,
completely
it's
changes
a
the game.
lot more potent.
Yeah.
Okay, so they have to do something to change it from opium to heroin.
Yeah.
Oh, it has to be processed and refined. Yeah, it has to be cooked down. And anyway,
Well, I'm
smuggled into the
Well, I-
US.
I don't-
I'm just wondering why whenever the Western world gets it, they
all right.
abuse it
First,
like
you got to set up
maniacs.
the lab. You need to get about
I'm just, that's not what I'm getting into.
Like I think it's like 1 ton of raw poppy would get you like 1 ounce of heroin.
Wow.
Jesus.
Okay.
Pure, and then that, like heroin, like the street heroin that they sell is usually 3 to 5%, maybe 10% max, and that'll be dropping people.
And then they mix it with fentanyl and it kills them.
Well, yeah, but not on the street dealers. They mix it with like baby laxative and stuff like that, or
Yeah.
Right.
So they turn it from Budweiser into Wild Turkey.
yeah.
The US in body bags containing deceased soldiers. Yet this trade ended with the fall of Saigon in 1975. Further challenges for the drug trade emerged between 1978 and 1980 in the Asian Golden Triangle. Severe droughts followed by intense monsoon rains, along with concerted efforts by Burmese and Thai governments to eradicate poppy production, led to record low opium harvests. Natural catastrophes and government actions were compounded by the Burmese army destroying 4 major heroin laboratories near the Thai border from 1976 to 1979. These setbacks encouraged the CIA to set its sights on a new supplier as the threat of communism remained. The Golden
they were doing this
Crescent
all the way
emerges.
to
The
1980
Golden Crescent,
something?
where the highlands of Afghanistan, Pakistan,
Holy
and Iran
shit.
all converge, emerged as a new source. Under US influence, heroin production rose from 400 tons in 1971 to 1,200 tons in 1978, soaring to 1,800 tons in 1979, while a network of laboratories was set up by.
There are some people that think that the reason the CIA was so gung-ho for helping the Mujahideen in Afghanistan when they went, which some call it Charlie Parker's War, Charlie something's war. What's his
Yeah,
name? Anyway,
I think you're right.
was because of this, because they had moved production of a lot of the, they weren't growing opium in Afghanistan until someone introduced it to there.
Yeah, the CIA did. They moved it from Burma to Afghanistan, right?
Could be, possibly, probably, yes, definitely.
Right.
It's like I mentioned like a couple streams ago, I think, or something. When the troops were moving through, they weren't allowed to burn the poppy fields.
Yeah.
Right. Because we talked about this because
Charlie Wilson's
Afghanistan used to grow other products like cotton and things like that, but they were not allowed to sell them because it's a conflicting product with the US. Opium's not. So they let them keep their opium field so that they'd have some sort of economy. Well, why the fuck do you care if they have an economy if you're trying to destroy their country? Just fucking, but it's crazy. It's terrible what that is.
It's all gnarly, man.
Yeah.
And the people that we were supporting prior to 9/11, the Northern Alliance, those were all warlords that were growing opium. The Taliban actually did not allow production of opium. They would burn the fields. But that's just, another one of them little tidbits.
Hey, Dave, I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. What the fuck?
By the Mujahideen along the Afghan-Pakistan border. As the Soviets invaded Afghanistan later that year, the CIA pulled support behind the Mujahideen, which included setting up Al-Qaeda cells.
Hey,
Heroin was smuggled into Italy by ethnic Albanians via Bulgaria, Kosovo, Greece, and Yugoslavia before arriving in Milan. The impact of the growing of opium in the region was acutely felt in Pakistan, where heroin users grew from less than 5,000 in 1979 to 1.6 million after the Soviet-Afghanistan War. The addiction continues. By 1988, Operation Gladio ended in Western Europe, marked by significant violence and casualties in Italy. In the book Operation Gladio, it states the official figures of the undertaking in Italy alone from the Gladio Commission showed that 14,591 acts of violence with political motivation had occurred between January the 1st, 1969 and December 31st, 1987. Through Gladio, 491 people had been killed and 1,181 injured or maimed. The figures were without parallel in Italian history.
Okay.
But heroin
so
continued to offer.
Were we fighting communists in Italy?
I don't know.
Because this was set up to fight the communists in 1944, right?
Yeah.
Let's lighten this up a little bit. Here's your favorite picture of the year, Julio. Here you go.
You pick on me for? What the fuck is this?
It's a dog riding a unicorn.
With a World War I help me, okay.
Yeah. It's your rainbow war. It's your rainbow warrior and Rainbow the Brute.
Ethan got that on his channel or something. Is this his?
Yeah, he said it was a random search results. Oh, all right. That's wild.
Lucrative resource for black ops, generating $100 billion by the turn of the 21st century. But catastrophically for the CIA in 2000, Mullah Omar's Taliban announced a ban on poppy production in Afghanistan. In 1976, 250 tons of opium were produced. By 1999, it amounted to 4,600 tons. Suddenly just collapsed to 81 tons in 2001. But with the war on terror and the US-led invasion in 2001, the ban ended, leading to a rebound in poppy harvests. By 2013, opium harvests reached a record 5,500 tons under US occupation. By 2014, $500 billion to $1 trillion from criminal activities and black ops were laundered through leading CIA-influenced global banks, half of them in the US.
He's not saying allegedly very much. I mean, is there proof of this somewhere? Is this written down?
I don't think it's contested by anyone.
I know, but sometimes you might want to say allegedly.
Well,
maybe. I know it's supposed to be true, Ben Togel, but
in April 2022, the Taliban re-established the ban on poppy cultivation and all types of narcotics. Afghan-based production collapsed by 95%, according to the UN. Opium prices have since soared. Does that mean no more black ops? Hardly. Just consider the rise in fentanyl deaths we have seen in recent years, which dwarfs that of even heroin, a product with a far higher margin than that of opium, easier to transport and synthesized in labs.
Is this another op? Is it not the Chinese doing this to us, Jim? Is this another fucking op from our Western government?
The Chinese are blaming us, actually.
I got a question. Is fentanyl a problem in Europe? Chat. There's Europeans in here.
That would be good to know. If fentanyl is just a U.S. problem, or
Ben Togel, Dave, this is the first time I believe all this shit, and I never believe anything.
On the 18th of June,
Thursdays.
Ben Togel has been the only person chatting in the chat for a while. Is there anybody else in the chat who has something to offer?
They're all taking notes like, holy shit, this can't be true. I got to tell my wife about this shit, man. What's that guy's channel again? Let me put that in there real quick. I think I still have it. Let's give this guy a follow. Economics of Empire. So
no, he's pretty solid.
He looks at empires from a monetary and how they get to where they're at. It sounds like.
Oh, you mean like Shadiversity? Yeah. Shad, same thing. Shad, yeah.
But I didn't hear him e-beg one time during his stream, so that's awesome.
Okay.
Let's get him to 500 subs, guys. He's at 473.
No chucks for this guy. Okay.
He's got the British accent cheat code.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
that is true.
Well, last night, like Mark, when he said he was from New Zealand, I was like, really? You sound American almost.
Oh, look at this. This guy's got one called Operation Ajax, the CIA oil coup in Iran. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm looking
Let's
for
ask the Shaw about that.
Yeah. Ask him how that worked out. Yeah.
That video said it was his second video in the Operation Gladio, so I want to make sure we get.
If you go to his search bar within his channel and just type in Gladio, it'll probably pull it up.
I don't know how any of that works.
Yeah, you see where it says search right up there next to
Right
posts? Yeah. But this is a different channel.
This is a different channel, yeah.
Okay.
NATO.
Which
Mark, you didn't put this on your channel tonight?
I did actually. I'm still streaming.
Oh, Jim's got a gazillion subs, so you're not showing up on his list.
I know. Jim is so much better than I am. Oh my God.
I see.
How could I live up to Jim? I mean,
no,
he's so amazing.
I see. Well, he's got way more subs, but I see you on my list, so we're all good.
What are you talking about?
Jim, you are amazing. You are the coolest dude ever.
And like,
he asked if I was streaming on my channel, and I said, Jim, just keep dunking on me. That's right.
What are you talking about? I got less than 100 subs.
I got 3. Okay, so 103 is very different.
20. Low watermark.
Oh, do I? Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh,
wow, 20.
Yeah. Hey, how about
21?
This might be the first video. Let's see.
Almost immediately after the end of the Second World War, both the US and several Western European security services cooperated to create several stay-behind networks. Their purpose was to conduct clandestine and guerrilla warfare operations to resist in the event of an invasion by the USSR and their Eastern allies. The existence of these networks was officially confirmed in November of 1990 by the Italian Prime Minister Giulio Andreotti. This is how the general public learned about the Italian stay-behind operation, known as Gladio, but which is a name that has become synonymous with the whole concept of anti-communist stay-behind operations. In our previous episode on the origins of Gladio, we covered the beginnings of the program with...
All right, so he said previous episode, right?
Yeah.
So this can't be the first one. All right, let me go find the first one.
Hold it! What the hell is that shit?
I have to agree with that soundbite. There's something about this guy's intonation, the way he's speaking. I don't know what it is. It doesn't sound like he is, a true World War scholar. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
maybe Dave knows what it is. I don't know.
I don't know. He's I don't know. He's just got that weird sitting at the desk posture thing with the suit jacket on, and I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We all don't know what it is. We know, but we know
what we like. We know what we don't like.
Is this Jim scrolling through the Cold War?
Yeah. He's looking for
In 1941, Theodor Kaufmann would publish a book titled "Germany Must Perish." It's a piece of literature which in the U.S. may seem of little significance if it's
that
even
sounds like cancel culture
However,
to
overseas,
me.
this book.
Yeah.
Trying to get old Germans fired at Home Depot.
Home Depot. Germans need to persist. I mean, come on, people. Come on.
Everybody's got to work.
This video is entitled "What If Germany Kept the Morgenthau Plan?" So this guy is claiming that the Morgenthau Plan wasn't kept.
Well,
I
don't see how, but okay.
Well, maybe we should tell the chat. Maybe we should watch what the Morgenthau Plan is first before we determine what if it wasn't kept. You know what I'm saying?
So this says, "What if the plan was implemented?"
Exactly.
Yeah. So
it's like watching Voyagers. Where the kid with the time watch Voyagers. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to know what the Morgenthau Plan is. You got that video, Jim. You sent it to me earlier, right?
We need 101 before 201.
Yeah.
Talk today is on Roosevelt's wartime policies of unconditional surrender in the Morgenthau Plan. In my opinion, there were 3 American presidents who achieved the status of being American Caesars. These were Lincoln, Wilson, and Franklin Roosevelt. In the case of each one, it was the war that occurred during their respective administration,
anybody, and they
the way
broke all
they
the fucking
deceitfully
rules to get what they
involved
wanted.
the American government in that war, and also the way they conducted the war. And in the case of Wilson and Roosevelt, the way they tried to achieve the peace that primarily made them into being the American Caesars. The favorable mythology continues to this day in regard to Abraham Lincoln, partly because he was assassinated and became a martyr, but also because the war itself has been mythologized into a war to abolish slavery rather than to keep the South from getting a lower tax rate and injuring northern business. The mythology also continues with Franklin Roosevelt today, largely because the general public still perceives that Pearl Harbor was a truly surprise attack not provoked by Roosevelt, and that the war had a great result in that it stopped the tyranny of Hitler. There's never any mention about what we did in America in regard to Stalin and how we helped to create a worse tyranny with communism through the war and the peace terms. However, in regard to Wilson, one of the great periods of his
we pulled an embargo on them and blockaded them and cut off their oil. They had no choice but to. They only had like 6 years worth of oil, so they had to make a choice to either attack us,
kill everybody, or not, or kill.
Why not? Why not join us? Why would they attack us?
Well, because in World War I they got snubbed, right, Jim?
They got snubbed after the League of Nations snubbed them, and they were after the treaties that went into place for arms treaties. Japan actually was the largest navy in the Pacific after World War I because our overall navy was spread between Atlantic and Pacific, and British were mainly focused on Atlantic Ocean and the Med and Indian Ocean, stuff like that. They weren't really focused on the Pacific. So Japanese was the largest navy in the Pacific. So and they were
right about that. So Jim, how did that work out for them? How did that work out for them?
Well, it didn't work out the way they wanted, but you know, I mean, I would argue that if this is just historical stuff here, if they would have followed up with an invasion of Hawaii instead of pulling off because they were afraid,
if they could have, because that's a long way. So I could put 6,000 people on Hawaii. That would definitely take over California.
No. I don't. They wouldn't be able to invade us, but they could have stopped our ability to project power into the Pacific
Ocean. Yeah,
you know, because we needed for a while. At that time there was no such thing as a nuclear powered carrier or nuclear submarines. You needed oil. You needed places to berth.
But Jim, don't you think manifest destiny and God is on our side? And everybody who thinks that, oh my God, George W. Bush says God is on our side.
Well, this is way before Bush. What I'm saying is that
but just
the Japanese
think about it.
Successfully attacked us. It might not have been a surprise. Might have been a surprise. I don't think it was a surprise. Pearl Harbor, we knew it was coming. People decoded the messages and they let it happen. But besides that, they had the ability. They had the troops to invade Hawaii and take over Hawaii. But for whatever reason, they were afraid because they didn't see any carriers. They knew our carriers were out to sea and what would happen if the carriers showed up. So they pulled off and went back. And then when they had tried to attack Midway, which would have fucked us up if they would have got to Midway, we were listening to their messages. Like, they never knew we were listening to their messages and decoding them.
Yeah.
So we knew they were going to attack Midway. We, had ships waiting to ambush them, and we're able to blunt that attack. And that was, because just think, we knew we were at war with them, and they were still able to attack us in the Philippines, which was basically part of the empire of the United States. Even though we say we didn't have an empire, we had the Philippines, we had other islands, nations, and stuff in the Pacific Ocean that we were basically in control of. We still have them today: Guam, Saipan.
Of course, I mean, we deserve it. We are.
I'm not saying we deserve it.
Sorry,
no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying things.
Just
things could have turned out differently if and plus
Jim.
they wanted to stop us from being able to stop them. is what happened, and they were hoping that they were going to be able to get enough, buffer out into the Pacific, taking over the islands that they did, and Burma, and pushing out everyone else, and trying to get into New Guinea, and to where they would stop us from being able to get to their home islands. But it didn't work. They awoke the sleeping giant, and
Oh, you mean Italy? Okay, sleeping giant.
no, I meant
Jim,
us.
I'm
Anyway.
fucking this year.
He's messing with you.
Historical revisionism occurred after World War One, and to a great degree the truth was told about Wilson and the Treaty of Versailles, although it's not often stated today.
Is that George
But the
W.
great
Bush?
historians took Wilson apart after World War
I
One.
think that's.
I know it's not him.
I think
It
this one
sounds
is
like him.
one is Murray Rothbard, and I think one is Mises.
Oh, who's narrating? Does it say?
No, it doesn't say.
Okay.
Oh,
I think it said
John
at the
V.
very
Dennison.
beginning.
John V. Denson, maybe.
Okay.
I think it had it like in the title card.
I mean, this is coming from libertarians, so I don't know if you trust libertarians.
Oh, Eric July. Okay, I trust Eric July.
One, and so he has a lesser status among the three American Caesars. In my chapter, one of my chapters in Reassessing the Presidency, I relate the story about Franklin Roosevelt in Pearl Harbor, and I comment upon an interesting meeting that occurred during the peace negotiations following World War I. There was a meeting of the representatives of the British and American government who were negotiating the treaty at the Majestic Hotel in Paris. Occurred on May 30, 1919. And at that time, it was agreed that the organization would be formed, or two organizations would be formed, to continue to promote the Anglo-American interest, especially as to foreign policy. Therefore, in the same year, 1919, the British formed the Royal Institute for International Affairs, which continues to this day. 2 years later, in 1921, key Americans created the Council on Foreign Relations, which continues to this day. In the excellent book entitled Perpetual War for Perpetual Peace, there's a very important comment on the Council on Foreign Relations by the great historian Charles Beard, where he comments on one of the purposes of the organization as follows, and he's writing this after World War II, but talking about the purpose of the organization. Quote, the Rockefeller Foundation and the Council against Stalin and communism. Baldwin's alternative proposal is virtually the same that Harry Truman said after the war. Truman said we should have tried to help either Hitler or Stalin, whichever was losing, so that they would each kill each other off. However, we got into the war through Roosevelt's subterfuge at Pearl Harbor. And Baldwin then goes on to label mistakes made after we entered the war, and I've added a couple. First, Baldwin states perhaps the biggest political mistake of the war was the unconditional surrender policy, which was an open invitation to unconditional resistance. And he states, quote, it probably discouraged the opposition to Hitler and probably lengthened the war, cost us lives, and helped to lead to the present abortive peace, end quote.
What does that mean,
It also lengthened the
unconditional
war
surrender?
against Japan.
What is that? What?
Well, it's same thing. We said the same thing to the Japanese, but then I'm pretty sure that we kind of didn't hold them to that exactly. I mean, we did, but we didn't. We didn't get rid of their emperor. We didn't kill him or anything. We let the emperor still be there.
So when you say unconditional, that means we get to just take over your land, and
yeah, you got to do whatever we say.
That means there's no parlay.
No parlay.
You're
gonna do that to anybody though after the war?
Germany.
I'm saying, other than Germany, did we do that to anybody? We didn't.
Sort of Japan, but I mean, we did. There was things that we left, like we didn't put any Japanese on trial, like we did in Germany.
Well, the Japanese weren't running these places.
Okay.
In Japan? Oh, they were doing it in China.
and Burma, and in the Philippines.
I thought that was World War One.
No, that was World War II. The Bataan Death March.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah, the Japanese were
They were
just as bad.
vicious. They were vicious, man. You ever watch Hardcore History?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like the rape of Nanking.
Yeah, the rape of Nanking.
They
Yeah,
put Japanese on trial, just not as
gnarly,
many as
man.
Germans.
I mean, maybe a couple, but they didn't put the Emperor on trial. They didn't put
No.
Hirohito on trial, or.
And unnecessarily from January 1945 to September 1945, showing that the atomic bombs need not have been dropped in August of 1945. Secondly, Baldwin leaves out the mistake of the Morgenthau plan, because not until recently did people really know that it was fully implemented. But of course, it did not go by that name at the time. I'll show you the disastrous effects of that policy also. And basically that plan was to make Germany into an agricultural country and transfer most of the industrial power to the Soviet Union through actual transfers of whole factories and equipment. A third mistake was to pour Lend-Lease money and material into Soviet Russia. But also it was a mistake, if you were going to use Lend-Lease, we should have attached conditions to the receipt by the Russians. Roosevelt should have put conditions on Lend-Lease by requiring Stalin to abide by the Atlantic Charter, which Stalin actually signed, and which stated that there would be no acquisition of territory or other countries by the participants of the war. Stalin not only took over Eastern Europe, but expanded into Asia in violation of the principles of the Atlantic Charter. The fourth mistake was getting Russia into the war with Japan. In return for its 6-day participation in the war with Japan, Russia acquired tremendous Lend-Lease money and equipment, and at the same time acquired territory and influence in Manchuria, got the Kuril Islands back from Japan, and basically brought communism forcibly into China and Korea. A fifth mistake was made at the Cairo conference by Roosevelt requiring Chiang Kai-shek to take communists into his cabinet. And finally, a sixth huge mistake was the failure to follow the plan of Churchill to invade Eastern Europe through the Balkans, thereby bringing British and American forces into Eastern Europe to protect them from the oncoming Russian army, and also to protect Germany from being overrun by the communists. Instead, Roosevelt decided to go with the plan favored by Stalin, which was the joint invasion by England and America through Normandy, France. This allowed Russia to overrun Eastern Europe and take over a great part of Germany. So this gives you the big picture of how Roosevelt mismanaged the war with his war and peace policies. An American diplomat by the name of William C. Bullitt, who was closely connected to Roosevelt and was his ambassador to France before the war, saw these tragic developments, and he stated, quote, "While our armed forces were fighting with superb skill and courage, our foreign policy was being handled with ignorant and reckless disregard of the vital interest of the American people." End quote. Roosevelt knew at the time he entered the war on the side of Stalin and communism that Stalin had already murdered over 10 million of his own people, while Hitler had only murdered 100. We had an ambassador in Russia that went to the show trials and knew of the terror and knew of the starvation and all that was going on with the crimes of Stalin, and that was reported to Roosevelt. Furthermore, Stalin had already invaded Finland, thereby causing Soviet Russia to be kicked out of the League of Nations. Stalin also invaded Poland in September of 1939 along with Hitler, but England and France only declared war on Germany. Roosevelt had also recognized Soviet Russia in 1933 as a true government.
Yeah, like a lot of people just gloss over, Germany invaded Poland. So did the Soviet Union.
And they invaded Finland?
Yep.
Yeah. It's insane.
That's where you get the stories of what the White Death, the sniper up there, and
in Finland.
Yeah.
That's a pretty kick-ass story. That whole
that guy's a freaking Chad, dude. Jeez.
Yeah.
He got he got shot in the face and kept going.
Insane.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy, man. But the victors write history, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it weird how the good guys always win because they write the history books?
It's weird.
It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, think about if Germany would have never invaded or waited several more years to invade Russia, would have secured, they could have starved out England possibly, because the U.S. was never going to come into the war without Pearl Harbor.
Right.
Or here's a weird idea. Maybe just don't attack Russia in winter.
Yeah. I mean,
when you're fighting on the West already. Like, what are you doing, dude? What the fuck? I know you're in a hurry to be the God Emperor of planet Earth, but wow.
They could have focused down in Africa, moved through got Africa secure, all the Mediterranean, and then just said, okay.
Do you find it strange that he just could never conquer England?
They had him at the they just never understood that the whole radar thing. They knocked a couple radar stations out the first day of the Blitz,
and
then they never really went back to hitting them. Which that's how they were. What they had them like right when they had they were attacking all the airfields, and they had according to history, the History Channel and all that, they had them on the brink of basically destroying the British ability to fight back, the Air Force. And then they changed, and they never tried to invade England. They were trying to just bomb them into submission and stuff. And
that's what I'm saying. Do you find it like they were across the fucking channel?
Well, the problem was the British Navy was still huge at that point in time, and they couldn't contend with them.
Right. Yeah.
They needed to control They needed to be able to control the British Channel for, I think, 48 hours to pull it off, and there was no way they could control it that long with Britain's Navy.
Even with all the air power they had.
Yeah, it just couldn't do it. They can control the air, they just couldn't control the sea lanes. And they never tried. If it's possible if they, and I think the whole thing in 42 when they attacked and did Barbarossa, that kind of. Right, that was it 41 or 42? They did Barbarossa. Anyway, that kind of stopped them attacking England because they were doing something else then. So they kind of were just this random. Every once in a while, they would go do some bombing and then back and forth and the Blitz.
Do you think Hitler wanted to bring the U.S. into the war?
No,
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I don't think that was his goal at all.
No, they had strict orders to avoid, hitting American ships, and they wanted after they actually tried to negotiate a peace with. The Germans tried to negotiate peace with England after they conquered France.
They didn't want to fight the British, I don't think, at all.
No, they would have been perfectly fine with making peace with the British. And then they would have just said, all right, we're cool. We're good. We got Europe. You guys stay there. We're going to go this way now.
Yeah, but Churchill didn't want any part of it, right?
Yeah, no, Churchill just... No, I mean, well, think about it. What reason did England and France have to declare war on Germany when they went into Poland?
Right.
They weren't going to do anything. All that was doing is saying, "Oh, we're at war now. We're going to do this. Okay, I guess we got to fight you now." So,
did they have a peace? Did they have a treaty with Poland?
I don't think so. They just said, if you would attack Poland, we're going to declare war on you, and then they did, and they did.
So Britain or England said, "Hey, we're going to consider it an act of war if you do this," and Hitler says, "Okay," but Stalin did too, and they did nothing to Stalin, but they did. Yahtzee boy. Where you can say Stalin online, but you can't say the other guy without worrying about it. Isn't that strange? And
strange.
Stalin killed a lot more people for a lot longer.
Yeah.
As other nations had treated the communists rightfully as criminals. Roosevelt also surrounded himself with direct communist agents throughout the war who made critical decisions, and I'm going to elaborate on that toward the end of the talk. In 1943, before Roosevelt first met Stalin at Tehran, he had a conversation with Ambassador William Bullitt, who reported that Roosevelt stated the following, Quote, I have just a hunch that Stalin doesn't want anything but security for his country. And I think that if I give him everything I possibly can and ask nothing in return, that is, noblesse oblige, he won't try to annex anything, and he will work for world democracy and peace. End quote. Finally, George Crocker, in his excellent book entitled Roosevelt's Road to Russia, he states, quote, nor is there any mystery about how the Soviet Empire expanded during and soon after World War II, to the point where 800 million people were under its rule instead of the pre-war 170 million. This shows the giant miscalculations and the tragic decisions that Roosevelt made in World War II, which is grossly mischaracterized as the last good war. In criticizing Roosevelt and getting America into the war and thereafter his policies on war and peace, I want to make it clear that I'm not advocating either pacifism, isolationism, or unilateral disarmament. There are just wars for which a country must be well prepared, and you will see this in Murray Rothbard's chapter in the book The Cost of War, where he writes about the two just wars in American history. Also, the term isolationism should be distinguished from what I'm advocating, which is non-interventionism. The great historian Charles Beard saw that joining the economy with the military or political force produced war. Beard, however, did not believe in a free market, and he saw government and the economy as necessarily connected. Therefore, in order to have peace, he advocated isolationism, which was withdrawing into a fortress America to avoid war. What Ludwig von Mises advocated, and I agree with, is a traditional and original American policy of non-interventionism. That is, global trade through free market with all countries, but without the support of the military, the CIA, or any other political force.
Do you agree with that,
Now, with that introduction, let's discuss.
I don't think we should be funding other people's wars. I don't think we should be sending Americans to die for another country's wars, you know?
Yeah, and
I'm just going to say that, you know?
Could not agree more.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know what? The United States isn't Europe. Sorry.
Nope. And just if I mean it's over now, but who knows what would have happened after 10 years under that crazy leadership if the people wouldn't have rose up and just got rid of it themselves. You know what I'm saying? Like the French did a really good job, those, you know, with what little they had, those revolutionary guys in France during World War II, just to disrupt the shit out of what they could.
I give the French a lot of shit, but you know what? They got a lot of heart.
Yeah.
We like to talk trash about them and the surrender flags and everything, but
sure,
they're the reason we're here. You know, without their support, we wouldn't have won our freedom. So,
correct. Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, those ships helped a lot, Jim.
Maybe. I don't know. They were doing it for their own reasons, though. It wasn't,
well, no, I mean
everybody does.
They wanted to stick an eye in the thumb, you know, their thumb in the eye of England.
For sure, yeah. You know,
because the French and the English have been warring with each other for hundreds of years, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You know, and
anyway. Discuss the Roosevelt policy of unconditional surrender, which Roosevelt proposed for all three of our alleged enemies, Germany, Japan, and Italy. The first public disclosure of this policy was announced by Roosevelt at the first summit, which was held in Casablanca.
You know, let's just say a lot of the problems of today that we face around the world are a direct result of, after World War II, countries like France and England and Spain? No, I don't think Spain, but France and England for sure, and probably some others, the Dutch maybe, and that wanted their colonies back, that demanded to have their colonies back, you know, in the Middle East and in Pacific and in, you know, Africa and in South America. They had colonies. The French in particular wanted all their colonies back, and that's what Vietnam was a French colony, and then caused a lot of problems. And like the whole thing with Iraq and you know, the Palestinian thing, that was the French and the British fighting over whose area was whose, and Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, and then there was some colonies that were German colonies.
And
Italian colonies that were in Africa that the French and the UK wanted and took, and they couldn't support them, and then, India ended up breaking away from Britain, and, that whole Gandhi guy, he was a pain in their ass. And, anyway.
They all wanted access to those resources in those areas,
Right,
So
Stalin was invited but refused to come, so it was merely between Churchill and Roosevelt. On January 23, 1943, the day before the policy was announced to the press, Elliott Roosevelt, the son of the president, states in his book entitled As He Saw It, that he was present with Churchill and, of course, the ever-present Harry Hopkins and his father during the luncheon. Without any prior consultation with Churchill, Roosevelt proposed the policy. Elliott Roosevelt states, quote, "For what it is worth, it can be recorded that it was father's phrase, that Harry Hopkins took an immediate and strong liking to it, and that Churchill, while he slowly munched a mouthful of food, thought, frowned, thought, finally grinned, and at length announced, 'Perfect. And I can see just how Goebbels and the rest of them will squeal,' end quote." Roosevelt then responded to Churchill by stating, quote, "Of course, it's just the thing for the Russians. They couldn't want anything better. Unconditional surrender. Uncle Joe might have made it up by himself," end quote. Churchill was in no position to object because he was completely dependent upon America in helping Britain in the war militarily and financially through the Lend-Lease program. However, the doctrine of unconditional surrender was in direct contradiction to assurances the British government made in public speeches and in private conversations in 1939 and 1940, when it was stated that if Germany would rid itself of Hitler, this would be an acceptable basis for peace talks. While it's possible that the idea of a harsh peace did come from Stalin through Harry Hopkins, Stalin objected strongly to the public announcement of the policy and stated that the Germans should remove Hitler and then negotiate with the Russians. He stated he had no quarrel with the German people. Stalin used false propaganda of promising an easy peace to the Germans if they would overthrow Hitler. On several occasions, when Roosevelt was asked by advisors to revise or to completely...
Stalin didn't like the Germans, and we know that Hitler hated the Russians, they tell us in history, right? Like, that's a thing. I mean, so Stalin was trying to get the German people, to get rid of Hitler so that he could invade their country and take over. Is that what he's saying here? That's what it sounds like to me. I don't know. Got nothing, Woad?
I mean, there's a lot of enmity between the Nazis and the communists, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they pretty much hated each other.
Yeah, the communists tried to burn down the Reichstag and all that.
Yeah. I mean, Ben's right. This, like, Stalin wanted everything. He did.
Yeah.
He really did. So, I mean, well, you saw what happened right after the war, right? I mean, the freaking feuding in between the West and the whole creation of the Iron Curtain and all that.
Yeah.
So
it's nuts.
Yeah.
Do you think the Russians would have been able to fight back the Germans without the American airplanes and supplies and money and tanks and grain and stuff that was getting brought in through the, whatever it was?
It's, I mean, I understand why the Russians had a chip on their shoulder versus us, afterwards, because we kind of came in the 11th hour and kind of cleaned house, and they suffered so many casualties in their wars, with the battles with the Germans. So I get it.
I mean, we were immediately upon the Germans attacking the Russians, we started supplying them with equipment.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't think the thing with us was, we were kind of isolated. We didn't have people, in our business. So our war machine could, produce tanks and planes and bombs and bullets and all that kind of stuff. We immediately switched into a war economy, right? So we just became a production warehouse. I don't think that the Russians could throw enough bodies at the, because that was their strategy. You know, it's like, hey, look, we don't have enough rifles for y'all, but you know, there's going to be some guys that die along the way. Just pick their shit up and go. You know, so I don't think that I don't think the level of success would have been the same without us being there.
Yeah. You know, what if Japan would have attacked Russia instead of attacking Pearl Harbor?
That would have been interesting. I don't have a good answer for that one.
You know, which would make sense because they were allies with the Germans, and that would have pulled, you know what I mean? Then the Russians wouldn't have been able to send the Manchurian forces or whatever they called them at that time, or Siberian forces or whatever they had there to the west. They would have had to keep them there to fight the Japs. So I don't
you know, Japan is a warrior culture. You know, they're hard ass soldiers, man.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. You know,
I mean, it's a small nation, but I mean, it's just that a different mentality.
To eliminate the policy, he staunchly refused and stated on several occasions he did not want to make the mistake that was made with the Treaty of Versailles after World War I. Roosevelt stated it was a grave mistake to have promised the Germans in World War I that a peace treaty would be crafted according to Wilson's 14 points. And then after the Germans agreed to this and laid down their arms, they were instead forced into a harsh treaty. Roosevelt admitted that this, quote, stab in the back gave Hitler one of the main issues that allowed him to gain political power. It's important to pause here and look at this incident referred to by Roosevelt because it's essential to understanding why World War I led to World War II and how Hitler acquired political power. America's entry into World War I drastically changed the balance of power, so it was obvious that Germany could not win. So the Kaiser's government wrote a letter to President Wilson dated October 3, 1918, appealing for an armistice and peace negotiations to be conducted on the basis of President Wilson's 14 points, which he had announced on January 8, 1918, and which would not have been a harsh peace treaty on Germany. Wilson then consulted for 1 month with the Allies, England and France, about the October 3 letter. And finally, with the agreement of all three Allies, American Secretary of State Robert Lansing wrote a letter dated November 5, 1918, answering the Germans on behalf of all three Allies, stating that the peace would be negotiated and concluded on the basis of Wilson's 14 points. This November 5, 1918 letter is rarely mentioned in any history book, but it is what is known as the pre-armistice agreement. Finally, the actual armistice was signed 6 days later on November 11, 1918. At that point, Germany laid down its arms, gave up the territory it had conquered, and went back to Germany, which had not been invaded. Instead of abiding by the 14 points and stopping all aggression, England continued its sea blockade up until Germany signed the peace treaty in June 1919. This blockade starved to death hundreds of thousands of German civilians. In this way, the Versailles Treaty was forced upon the new German government, which had replaced the Kaiser's government. It was absolutely a vindictive and unfair treaty, which completely violated the 14 points. It was not a negotiated treaty, but a forced treaty, since Germany was not even allowed to be present while the terms were discussed. The Weimar Republic of Germany continued to enforce this Versailles Treaty against the wishes of the German people, helping to make this government very unpopular in Germany. Also, the German people were faced with a takeover of communism from within Germany and from Soviet Russia. So one man arose from the ashes of World War I and promised to set aside the Versailles Treaty and defeat communism, and that was Adolf Hitler. He had the political issues which caused the Nazi Party to become the most popular political party in Germany and allowed him to gain power through the democratic and constitutional process. Hitler was made chancellor as a result of the Nazi Party being the major party. And when President Hindenburg died, Hitler then joined the office of president to his position of chancellor. Then, under the emergency powers contained in the German Constitution at that time, and was available to him as president, he assumed dictatorial powers and dissolved Parliament, which was a constitutional act, available to him in case of emergency. People who later formed a part of the German resistance movement to Hitler had first supported him because he was going to set aside the unfair treaty and fight communism. The treaty had limited Germany to only 100,000 armed forces and prevented them from having any air force or navy. Germany was exposed to Soviet communism and to the large French army without any defenses, and the vast majority of the Germans knew that the treaty must be set aside. In fact, key people who negotiated the treaty for the Allies openly stated that the treaty was too harsh and needed to be revised. And Wilson even stated that the League of Nations needed to revise the treaty soon after.
I mean,
he
how
left
long
Paris.
was a treaty supposed to go
The
on
true-
for fucking infinity? What the fuck?
Until they paid back all the money, or like they had billions of dollars they were supposed to pay in restitution to the British and the French, and not sure what else. And then it was.
Well, if you're taking away their economy, how can they pay the money back? It's like they just wanted to keep them like. Were they
I don't
just,
know if he's going to
were
get
they
into it,
wanting
but-
Russia to invade them or France to
No.
take over or something?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, the end of World War I pretty much set up World War II.
Yeah.
Because they were backed into a corner, you know, and
Yeah.
they were looking for someone to lead them out of it. And then, of course, you know who rose to power with a lot of promises and started to make some changes.
Yeah.
And it sounded really good. So of course they're going to go with it, because what's the alternative? You know, you live with a boot on your throat, or you become powerful.
Yeah, until like 1937, 38, there was a lot of people in America, a lot of politicians that thought Hitler was a great guy.
Yeah.
Well,
They went to the Olympic Games in Germany. I mean,
if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the money used to rebuild a lot of the German war machine, let's say, came from America through loans and other means to help them get out from under, because their country was basically collapsing under the weight of the sanctions and the
you know, if you're sitting there,
reparations.
you're sitting there starving and defenseless, you're gonna look for something, you know, to latch onto.
Yep.
Sure.
The explanation of Munich is that was a revision of the treaty, which was necessary and advisable. Then the unfair treatment of Germany is what Roosevelt was talking about when he said that he was going to avoid the stab in the back this time. But the real reason of Versailles, real lesson of Versailles, is that a harsh treaty itself should be avoided. Not just the false promises and the terms should be negotiated and not dictated in order to create a more stable peace after the war than that which existed before. Ralph Raico mentioned a while ago about the Congress of Vienna in 1814, which ended the Napoleonic Wars, and that's a good example of a good attempt to arrive at a peace treaty to create a more stable peace, which basically it did for about 100 years in Europe. It was negotiated with all parties present, and it was not dictated to France, which lost the war. This is the lesson that Roosevelt did not learn, and the great mistake he made in forcing the vengeful, unconditional surrender policy on America's alleged enemies in World War II. The unconditional surrender policy is rarely seen in history as a way to conclude a war. The most famous example, however, being the ruthless policy in which Rome conquered Carthage. The word Carthaginian became an adjective to describe a harsh peace. Now, going back to the Casablanca Conference, on January 24, 1943, the day following the luncheon with Churchill, Roosevelt announced the policy of unconditional surrender to the astonished press. He did this in a casual manner as though he just thought of it. Then he recalled that during the American Civil War that General U.S. Grant acquired the nickname Unconditional Surrender, which is said to stand for the letters U.S. in his name. Roosevelt stated he was going to use the same unconditional surrender terms that Grant had forced upon Lee at Appomattox. Again, Roosevelt demonstrated his ignorance of history. Grant got his name Unconditional Surrender from the Battle of Fort Donelson in Tennessee. And it is not unusual for, during a war for an individual battle to require unconditional surrender. However, it's highly inadvisable and rarely seen that you settle a war on unconditional surrender. In fact, Grant gave Lee such generous terms for surrender at Appomattox that when Lee surrendered the Army of Northern Virginia, that it was challenged by the administration. Grant allowed the Southern soldiers and officers to keep their horses and mules, and the officers to keep their weapons. He shared the rations of the Union soldiers with the Southern soldiers, many of whom were practically starving. He allowed the Southerners to go back home with the understanding that they would take an oath of loyalty to the Union government. The actual terms for surrender that were offered and discussed by the North and the South occurred at Hampton Roads, Virginia in January 1865, when Abraham Lincoln and his Secretary of State, William Seward, met with Alexander Stephens, the Confederate Vice President. Lincoln stated that if the South would rejoin the Union, there would be no harsh peace and no Reconstruction, and the South could simply return to the Union with its elected representatives. Lincoln stated that the 13th Amendment was still pending in Congress, and that this would abolish slavery, but if the South returned, they would have the votes to defeat it and they could protect slavery. Stephens, on behalf of the South, stated the South was not interested in protecting slavery and they simply wanted their independence and refused the offer. Now let's go to the other policy, peace policy of Roosevelt, and that is the one that only applied to Germany, and that's the Morgenthau Plan. The Morgenthau Plan is named for Roosevelt's Secretary of Treasury, Henry Morgenthau, Jr. Morgenthau's father, Henry Sr., was a very large financial contributor to both the Wilson and Roosevelt campaigns for president. The large Morgenthau estate adjoined the Roosevelt estate along the Hudson River, so they were neighbors. Henry Jr. was the only Jewish person in the cabinet of Roosevelt, but he was Roosevelt's closest associate and friend in the cabinet. Henry Jr. was very undistinguished and had accomplished little prior to being named by Roosevelt as Secretary of Treasury, a position he was uniquely unqualified to fill. In August of 1944, Morgenthau Jr. took a...
Well, I mean, he was Jewish, so Treasury money, he was qualified. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Trip to England to see General Eisenhower, who led the American forces in the Normandy invasion and the European campaign. He took with him his top aide in the Treasury Department, Harry Dexter White, who was later to be definitely determined to be a communist spy. Also, that was not the real name of Harry Dexter White. His parents were Jacob and Sarah Wheat, W-E-I-T, who had immigrated from Russia. The purpose of the trip was to discuss the post-war treatment of Germany and to draw up a plan for how this was to be carried out. Morgenthau determined at the meeting with Eisenhower that the general also supported a policy of vengeance against the Germans to punish them severely. Eisenhower, in fact, collaborated with Morgenthau in drawing up the plan. Morgenthau then returned to America and was invited by Roosevelt to accompany him to the Second Quebec Conference in September of 1944, which Stalin also did not attend. At this meeting, in the presence of Churchill and Morgenthau, Roosevelt outlined the plan that Morgenthau presented to him, and basically the plan was as follows. Germany was to be turned into an agrarian country, and most of the industrial capacity of Germany was to be transferred to Soviet Russia. 1/4 of the arable land in Germany was to be taken over by communists, and the rest of it was to be divided into the 4 districts. Germany was to be divided in areas of control by the Allies. Germans trained and proficient in the industrial arts were to be encouraged to leave voluntarily, and if they did not, they would be forcibly exported out of Germany and sent primarily to Soviet Russia. The rich coal mines of Germany were to be flooded and destroyed. The German people were to be reduced to a level of subsistence so they would never be able to fight another war. One advisor to Roosevelt, Secretary of State Cordell Hull of Tennessee, told Roosevelt that this sounded very similar to the Reconstruction plan forced upon the South by the North in the American Civil War, which kept them at a subsistence level for about 75 years. And Roosevelt agreed that was a good plan to follow. However, Churchill strongly objected and stated he could never accept such a plan for Germany, and that it would create and cause terrible repercussions in Europe and for England after the war.
He just fought 2
Morgenthau
fucking world
defended
wars,
the plan
dude.
to Churchill,
He
stating
just
that this
fought 2 world wars over the same shit.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I mean,
well, no, because what they're saying is that Roosevelt's cabinet was infiltrated by communists.
Right.
And he was getting advice from the communists, and he was doing what the communists wanted him to do. So in other words, Roosevelt was a communist.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if you act like a communist and you do what communists do, you're a fucking communist.
Yeah.
would eliminate an industrial and trading competitor for England and therefore benefit England financially. That night, Roosevelt and Churchill met alone, and Roosevelt explained to Churchill that he would need to go along with the Morgenthau plan in order to get further Lend-Lease money and equipment for England and further support from America in the remainder of the war. The next morning, Churchill announced that he had been converted, and he endorsed the plan. The plan was not announced publicly, but Churchill and Roosevelt initialed a memorandum which contained the post-war policy in peace terms. Again, Stalin was not present, but Harry Hopkins was present and approved the plan enthusiastically, and even asked to be the military governor for the Americans to administer the plan. But General Eisenhower was the initial person who filled that position. When Roosevelt returned to Washington and informed his Secretary of War, Henry Stimson, of the plan, Stimson was strongly opposed and stated this would be a disaster. His assistant, John McCloy, who became Mr. Establishment many years later, joined with Stimson in trying to oppose the plan. Finally, McCloy leaked word of the plan to Arthur Kroc of the New York Times, and the matter became a hot campaign issue with Tom Deere during the 1944 presidential campaign. When this became public in October of 1944, Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda chief, denounced the Morgenthau blueprint as a Jewish murder plan to exterminate 43 million Germans. Goebbels told the German people that to prevent the Allies from imposing the Morgenthau plan, every house in Germany should resemble a fortress. Goebbels later coupled the Morgenthau plan with Roosevelt's policy of unconditional surrender and told the Germans that they were headed towards extermination unless they resisted to the end. Most probably it was the combination of these two policies which caused the German army to fight so ferociously in the Battle of the Bulge very late in the war, when the defeat of Germany was virtually certain. On October 20, 1944, Roosevelt signed a document stating that the plan would not be put into effect after the war. However, Roosevelt met with the British economist John Maynard Keynes in November of 1944 and discussed the Morgenthau plan with him. Keynes was in America for the Bretton Woods Conference, which established the post-war financial plan to go with the United Nations. Roosevelt told Keynes then that the public statement that the Morgenthau plan had been abandoned was not true, and that secretly the plan would be implemented after the war. In fact, at the end of the war with Germany, in May of 1945, a slightly changed version of the Morgenthau plan was signed by President Truman. It was a presidential directive simply labeled as JCH 1067. General Eisenhower administered the plan and was finally replaced by General Lucius Clay. The implementation of the Morgenthau plan has been hidden from the American public, but two books have now come out about the plan. The most sensational is by James Bach, B-A-C-Q-U-E, entitled Crimes and Mercies, which is cited in your bibliography. The other is a very recent book entitled The Conquerors by Michael Beschloss. Bach gives graphic details and concludes that 5 million Germans starved to death while under Allied government control after the war. In another book by Bach entitled Other Losses, published in 1988, Bach claims that 1.5 million German prisoners of war disappeared into the Soviet Union, never to be heard of again. Bach reveals that far more civilian Germans died in 5 years of peace than the number of German soldiers in 6 years of war. He shows that Eisenhower issued orders that the food supply was to be destroyed and famine created for the Germans beginning in 1945. So this is what it means in the title, Crimes, and then the rest of the title is Mercies. The title Mercies relates to the fact that Truman contacted Herbert Hoover after the war to institute a food plan for Europe, just as Hoover had done after World War I. Bach says that saved maybe 800 million people in Europe from starving. James Bach has stated that it is almost unbelievable that such a program as the Morgenthau plan could have even been devised, but shocking that it was announced to be canceled but secretly administered, and finally tragic that the enforcement of the plan has been covered up for all these years. Bach's numbers have been challenged by other historians as being too high, and you can see a more moderate approach, although equally disturbing, of the effects of the Morgenthau plan in the book by Michael Beschloss, that I just mentioned. I had an opportunity to have dinner with Michael Beschloss a few months ago while he was speaking here in Auburn, and we discussed the research he's doing on his next book, which is going to be on the final days and the assassination of Lincoln, which is a subject that interests me greatly. However, I brought up the book Crimes and Mercies by Bach, and Beschloss stated, quote, Bach has his own agenda, end quote. I'm not sure what that means, but other historians have cautioned that Bach's figures may be exaggerated. However, if you cut his figures in half, they show a tremendous crime was committed by Roosevelt, Morgenthau, and Eisenhower. I do not believe that Truman actually understood what he was signing when he signed JCH 1067 in May of 1945, because there's an incident related in the book by Bechelos which describes Truman's visit to post-war Berlin when he attended the Potsdam Conference in July of 1945, which I think indicates this. Truman observed there that the Germans were in a destitute condition, and he was appalled to see the starvation and utter destruction in Berlin. He commented at the time that this brought to mind the stories of his mother had told him of his grandmother after the American Civil War in Missouri. His grandmother and their family home had been completely destroyed by the Union soldiers, and she was left destitute, penniless, and starving. She walked for miles and miles over a long, long period of time in search for just food and shelter. He stated he would never allow anything like that to happen in Germany. Truman fired Morgenthau in July of 1945, and in the winter of 1946, Hoover began his plan to feed Europe. In 1948, the Marshall Plan was put into effect to assist Germany. Therefore, I believe that Truman finally reacted against the Morgenthau Plan once he realized what it was. Now let's look at the very important part of this whole story.
Truman was a good guy, Jim?
And that is a significant...
I think Harry Truman was a regular guy, and he had his foibles and he had his problems, but he was probably the most honest politician to run our country since Washington.
Yeah.
I don't think he needed to drop the second nuke.
Yeah.
The Soviets, as soon as the Soviets moved into Manchuria and took that shit over, Japan would have capitulated. Their whole no surrender policy, you know. So, like you said, he had his own foibles. I mean, a lot of people died when they dropped that second bomb, man.
He was doing what his generals were advising him to do.
Yeah. The moral of the story with all of this is, you know who suffers most from war?
The fucking civilians.
The civilians.
Yes.
The civilians. It's terrible. It's the horrors of war, they're terrible for the soldiers, but then all the collateral damage that civilians suffer.
But if I'm not mistaken, we killed more civilians and destroyed more property and caused more damage in the firebombing of Dresden.
No, we don't want to talk about that one. Yeah.
Than we did in both
I understand.
atomic bombs combined.
Yeah, I mean, war is hell, and unfortunately, a lot of people are caught in the crossfire that had no part and no quarter in it.
I mean, there's some correlations with something that's happening right now, which I really don't want to get into because it's a touchy subject and people have hot views either way. And there's no right answer in my mind to this certain situation. And it's not Ukraine. It's not what I'm talking about.
No, I understand. Hey, but Dave, I'm going to have to bounce out, man.
Oh, see, I fucking brought it up and now he's leaving.
It's sensitive. I have to leave.
Oh, no.
No, I got to get to bed. But hey, thanks for having me on, man.
Hey, all right, buddy. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Thanks,
right.
chat. See you later.
See you, bud.
And then there was two.
What low watermark just dropped?
He said he can't stand people talking bad about his favorite people.
Oh. Okay, so Truman was fucking what the fuck are we doing here?
Well, yeah, when he went there and saw what they were doing, he's like, no. I mean, because really, you want to look into some fucked up treatment of people, look at what happened to the South after, Reconstruction and what they were doing. And and then basically they tried to do the same thing when they were making states out west. I think Nebraska, where one of, because Grant sent his people out west to make states out west, and basically they did, we'll just do what we did in the South and fuck it, we'll do it. And these people were what the term carpetbaggers comes from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Resistance movement against Hitler in Germany, which is also left out of most history books today. The policies of unconditional surrender and the Morgenthau Plan had an extremely detrimental effect upon this resistance movement. Allen Dulles was employed by the OSS in Switzerland, which was the organization that preceded the CIA. One of his primary duties was to locate the German underground and see if there was a resistance movement to Hitler. Dulles then wrote a book after the war, which is cited in your bibliography, entitled Germany's Underground. And he tells the heroic story in some detail. Over 800,000 German citizens were put in concentration camps by Hitler because of their resistance to him, and almost all were murdered within a few months before the war ended in May of 1945. And these are just the people that were connected to this particular plot. These resistors were primarily Christians who wanted to remove Hitler to stop the tyranny he had instituted in German people generally. Dulles recounts that he came into contact with this significant movement in 1942, which had begun on a small basis in 1933 when Hitler first took over. The plan had developed over the years and was well developed and revealed to Dulles in 1942. There was a significant number of German military officers and civilians who secretly joined together to propose a new government for Germany to carry out the overthrow of Hitler. The plan was to either capture or to kill Hitler and his key Nazi leaders. And then the new government would take over Germany, negotiate a peace treaty with England and America. Then they would transfer all of their efforts in a war to defeat Stalin and communism in a one-front war. These people feared that if Hitler or Stalin won, that tyranny would result in either case, and that Christian Western civilization would probably be destroyed in Europe and most certainly would be destroyed in Germany. Dulles reported these activities in detail in the plans to Washington and to London. And then in January 43, Roosevelt announced the unconditional surrender policy, which was a complete repudiation of the efforts of these people to overthrow Hitler and try to reach a fair peace with England and America. Roosevelt not only said that the surrender would have to be unconditional, but he said it would have to be made jointly with Russia. And this completely destroyed the plan of the resistance movement to continue the war against communism. Let your imagination grasp the significance of this original plan of resistance and indulge in a little counterfactual history with me. By late November 1941, the German armies had reached the outskirts of Moscow. They'd surrounded Leningrad and had taken most of the Ukraine. The Germans had taken 2 million Soviet prisoners of war and occupied a landmass encompassing 40% of the population of Russia. At this time, the huge Lend-Lease benefits promised to the Soviets by Roosevelt in July of 1941, which was, of course, before America entered the war,
That's what you were talking about,
taken
Jim,
place.
right?
And therefore, the German armies were winning the war. However, Hitler had hoped to completely win the war before the Russian winter, but his initial invasion had been delayed. If there had been no unconditional surrender policy and true intelligent statesmen had been in charge of the American and the British governments, think what might have occurred to the rest of the 20th century if cooperation had been given to this movement, if Hitler and the Nazis had been killed, and a new democratic government instituted in Germany. And finally, this new government of Germany then could have continued the war with Stalin, who would not have received any Lend-Lease money or equipment. Germany would not be fighting a two-front war, but only one front, with Stalin as the only enemy. Stalin and his murderous communist leaders and ideas might have been eliminated in Russia by 1942 or 43. And then both communism and Nazism would have been eliminated with very little loss of life to Americans or the British. Instead, the policy of unconditional surrender was announced by Roosevelt in January of 1943 with knowledge.
I would love to see those Dulles documents saying that. You know what I'm saying? Like Dulles talked about this plan. I would love to see that shit because
I think that's why you had people like Patton and other people saying we're fighting the wrong people. We should be arming the Germans and sending them east.
Right. Yeah.
Because they knew all along that these were not good people.
Yeah. Patton hated every second of them, but I want to see the documents because it's part of that whole conspiracy thing, right? Like, yeah, you're saying that now, but is it true? I mean, I would love to see those.
Well, I think all this guy's information is based off of books written by the people actually involved. You know, like
no, I want to see the fucking documents when the Dulles talked to Roosevelt. They write all this shit down.
We're going to get more into conspiracy stuff. This is just explaining what it was and what it did. You know, the plan, kind of explaining what they were doing.
Yeah.
That this movement existed and exactly what their plans were. Let's look at the makeup of this movement in a little more detail. It consisted primarily of professional military officers in Germany who were not part of the SS or the private army of Hitler. In fact, the key leader was General Ludwig Beck, who was Hitler's chief of staff of the regular army. Beck had been a strong supporter of Hitler in trying to destroy that part of the Versailles Treaty which disarmed Germany. However, when Hitler began to announce plans to invade Czechoslovakia and Poland, Beck resigned and began to campaign to develop the resistance movement to Hitler. Connected with General Beck was Dr. Karl Godello, who was the former mayor of Leipzig. He resigned his position as mayor when the Nazis destroyed the statue of the German Jewish composer Felix Mendelssohn in Leipzig, where Mendelssohn had lived for a number of years. Beck was to be the top man and Godello the second in command of the new government. The movement spread quickly throughout many of the professional military officers who were aware of and committed to the plan as early as 1942. However, the generals were discredited to some extent because of Hitler's success at Munich and then his invasion of Poland, which they had opposed. Finally, a great deal of opposition was made by the professional military officers to Hitler's plan to invade Russia. So Hitler's great successes finally came to an end in the Battle of Stalingrad in January of 1943, which most agree was the turning point of the entire war. At Stalingrad, Hitler demanded that the German Sixth Army fight to the death of the last man rather than make a strategic withdrawal. When Hitler sacrificed the entire Sixth Army unnecessarily, many of the German generals approached Hitler and asked that he give up control of the military operations and turn it over to the generals as Stalin had done, but Hitler refused. It was at this point that the resistance movement began to gather real momentum among the military. Finally, when Africa was lost in May of 43, General Rommel, Germany's greatest and most respected military leader, began to communicate with the resistance movement. Admiral Canaris, who is head of the German intelligence service, where most of the plotting took place, was completely aware of all of the plot and helped it but never actually joined it. Nevertheless, Canaris was connected with it and was eventually put in a concentration camp and killed shortly before the end of the war. Rommel finally became actively involved in the plot after the Allies' successful invasion of Normandy in 1944. But he was wounded in an automobile in which he was riding when it was strafed by an Allied plane. Rommel's popularity with the German people was so great that when Hitler learned that he was part of the plot to have Hitler killed, he could not afford to kill Rommel or put him in a concentration camp. Instead, Rommel was allowed to take poison in a secret suicide that was announced publicly to be a death from his wounds. There's an excellent movie about this starring James Mason, which I've cited in the bibliography, and it's a very accurate portrayal of Rommel's role in the resistance movement. However, there was also a civilian contingent to this, which was headed up by a lawyer and a member of the famous Moltke family. Helmuth von Moltke was the great-grandnephew of the famous general from the Franco-Prussian War. The group met at his estate called Kressau. This was almost entirely a Christian group, which of people from the left and right, and they were responsible for drawing up the plans for the new government to replace Hitler. They came to the conclusion that Christian ethics demanded a socialistic government, so the new government would be democratic, but it would have been socialistic. A much smaller group consisted of university students, and this was called the White Rose Movement. These students did little more than hand out leaflets demanding freedom and protesting the tyranny of Hitler, yet they were ruthlessly murdered by Hitler also. From the beginning to the end of the resistance movement, there were 40 attempts to kill Hitler. The Kressau group had originally objected to participating in the killing of Hitler and advocated merely that he be captured and restrained, but that alternative became impractical as time passed and it was eventually set aside and the plot was to kill him. The Gestapo was gradually becoming aware of the people in the resistance movement, and a warrant was actually issued against former Mayor Karl Godello 3 days before the final attempt on Hitler, while Godello was already in hiding. The plan finally culminated on July 20, 1944, when an aristocratic professional soldier and war hero, Colonel Count von Stauffenberg, who had been severely wounded in the war, took the bomb inside of a briefcase into the conference room where Hitler was meeting with his key military officers in East Prussia. Stauffenberg activated the timing device in the briefcase and arranged to have a phone call made to get him out of the room. He went outside and saw the building explode. He saw many bodies being carried out, and one had Hitler's coat over it. So he concluded that Hitler had been killed. He had previously arranged for a plane to fly him directly to Berlin, and upon arriving there, he set out to put the plan into effect, notified General Beck and other officers that Hitler had been killed. Their plan then began to mobilize, but several problems developed. First, the communication center from Hitler's headquarters in East Prussia had not been destroyed as it planned. And secondly, the radio station in Berlin had not been taken over as planned. However, General Beck and Colonel Stauffenberg, thinking Hitler was dead, took over the Nazi headquarters in Berlin and arrested the Nazis and put them under restraint. Word was sent out for the soldiers to rebel and arrest all the other Nazis and for the army to take over the German government, which began to take place. However, and most importantly, Hitler had not been killed, but only wounded. And at 1 a.m. on the morning of July 21, he came on the radio and announced that he had lived through the attempted assassination. Hitler announced there had been a small group of criminal, ambitious officers who tried to kill him and take over the government. When it became obvious that Hitler was alive and the plot became unraveled, the Nazis resumed control. Stauffenberg was immediately taken out into the courtyard of the Nazi headquarters and shot. General Beck requested that he be allowed to retain his pistol in order to commit suicide, and he was allowed to do so there at the headquarters. Massive arrests then began to take place, and hundreds of thousands of plotters were put into concentration camps, along with their friends and relatives and anyone else who was
How the hell
suspected
did
of
they
being a
find
part
out
of the plot.
hundreds of thousands of plotters?
However,
Did they
Churchill
just
and
pick
Roosevelt
every
both
Christian
adopted.
off the street?
Well, they probably got just people they didn't like and just said, "Yep, that's them." You know,
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure they you know, they kept Germans
that's a
were
lot
always
of
good at
fucking
keeping
people.
records. They probably had serious records about who was, who was involved.
Adopted Hitler's false propaganda that this was just a small group of ambitious and criminal officers involved in the plot. On the other hand, Stalin appealed to the German people to keep trying to kill Hitler. On Moscow radio, the Russian broadcast stated, quote, "Courageous men rose against Hitler. They have thus begun the signal for the salvation of Germany. The power which he holds can be taken from him only by the German people. Generals, officers, and soldiers, cease fire at once and turn your arms against Hitler. Follow only those who will lead you against Hitler. Do not fail these courageous men," end quote. Alan Dulles in his book reports that the unconditional surrender policy greatly impeded the original plans of the resistance movement because many of the army officers could not see any better condition for them if they were forced to surrender unconditionally to the Russians. Dulles also reported that the bombing of German cities by the British and Americans, which caused high civilian casualties, did not work to discourage the Germans. Instead, it caused the German people and soldiers to have grave doubts about the British and the Americans as liberators. The Russians were not bombing their cities, but the Americans and the British were. The Russians were not talking about unconditional surrender, but the British and the Americans were. Much of the civilian population that was being bombed finally began to look to Hitler as their only protection. Dulles reported he was extremely disappointed in the response from Washington and London about the attempt on Hitler's life, which was dismissed as of no consequence, while the Russians still encouraged rebellion among the Germans. At the end of the book, Dulles finally concluded, quote, "Both Washington and London were fully advised beforehand of all the conspirators were attempting to do, but it sometimes seemed that those who determined policy in America and England were making the military task as difficult as possible by uniting all Germans to resist to the bitter end," end quote. A key element of the resistance movement was that the difference between Stalin and Hitler was how they treated their professional armies. Stalin had purged his military before World War II and murdered 35,000 of the senior officers who were suspected of being disloyal, while Hitler had not conducted such a purge, except for the Night of the Long Nights, which is his own private group primarily. Hitler had merely required his officers to take a loyalty oath. Hitler thought that the murder of these 35,000 Russian officers would demoralize the Russian army and make victory over Russia easier. But the Russians still fiercely defended their homeland against the German invasion. Hitler stated toward the end of the war that he made a great mistake in not purging his professional army of its key officers, who became the central part of the resistance movement, which turned on him. America lost a great opportunity in not cooperating with these officers and the civilians who courageously rebelled against Hitler. There's now in Berlin a monument to Count von Stauffenberg, and the name of the street where the Nazi headquarters was and where he was murdered has now been changed to be named for him. This resistance movement is a great and heroic story coupled with a sorry performance on the part of America and Britain in failing to recognize and cooperate with them. Roosevelt's unconditional surrender policy and the Morgenthau Plan lengthened the war greatly, caused many on both sides to be killed unnecessarily.
Trump's talking now,
Of the
Jim.
several books I've listed in the bibliography.
Okay.
I'll pull it up. Oh, Jesus Christ.
That rally in Pennsylvania on Saturday night.
Thank you very, very much. Wow. And thank you, Dana. Thank you, Kid Rock, sometimes referred to as Bob. And thank you, Lee, right from the beginning. Thank you very much. What a talent. What a beautiful, beautiful song. Thank you.
NBC, really?
Friends, delegates,
Find another
and
one.
fellow
I just pulled up the
citizens,
first one that was
I
live.
stand before you this
It's
evening
the RNC.
with confidence, strength, and hope. 4 months from now, we will have an incredible victory, and we will begin the 4 greatest years in the history of our country.
Here, how about we watch it on
Together we
on
will launch a
Donald
new
J.
era of
Trump.
Safety, prosperity, and freedom. Part of the body. For whatever reason, the doctors told me that. I said, why is there so much blood? He said, it's the years. They bleed more. So we learned some strength and hope. Thank you very, very much. Wow. And thank you, Dana. Thank you, Kid Rock, sometimes referred to as Bob. And thank you, Lee, right from the beginning. Thank you very much. What a talent.
See
What a
this
beautiful,
T
beautiful
right here?
song.
This T?
Thank you.
That's Donald J. Trump
Friends,
channel. I'm a
delegates,
subscriber.
And fellow citizens, I stand before you this evening with a message of confidence, strength, and hope.
Show us the hole in the
4
fucking ear.
months from now,
Come on.
we will have
Show us
an
the hole.
incredible
Put your
victory,
finger in it.
and we will begin
Do it.
the
Do it.
4 greatest years in the history of our country. Together we will launch a new era of safety, prosperity, and freedom for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. The discord and division in our society must be healed. We must heal it quickly. As Americans, we are bound together by a single fate and a shared destiny. We rise together or we fall apart. I am running to be president for all of America, not half of America, because there is no victory in winning for half of America. So tonight, with faith and devotion, I proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States. Thank you.
Now I heard 50 Cent is going to come out with Donald Trump and sing. I guess, is that what Ben Tola saying? It happens right after this? All right, cool. Many men try to kill Donald Trump. Can't kill Donald Trump.
Can't play it.
Thank you very much.
Harumph, harumph,
Thank
harumph.
you very much. And we will do it right. Going to do it right. Let me begin this evening by expressing my gratitude to the American people for your outpouring of love and support following the assassination attempt at my rally on Saturday. As you already know, the assassin's bullet came within a quarter of an inch of taking my life. So many people have asked me, what happened? Tell us what happened, please. And therefore, I will tell you exactly what happened, and you'll never hear it from me a second time because it's actually too painful to tell. It was a warm, beautiful day in the early evening.
Jesus Christ, Trump.
In Butler Township.
You're not a
in the
storyteller
great
like this. You're
Commonwealth
supposed to be
of
bombastic and being
Pennsylvania.
like, it came and hit me in the fucking...
Music was loudly playing, and the campaign was doing really well. I went to the stage, and the crowd was cheering wildly. Everybody was happy. I began speaking very strongly, powerfully, and happily, because I was discussing the great job my administration did on immigration at the southern border. We were very proud of it. Behind me and to the right was a large screen that was displaying a chart of border crossings under my leadership. The numbers were absolutely amazing. In order to see the chart, I started to, like this, turn to my right and was ready to begin a little bit further turn, which I'm very lucky I didn't do, when I heard a loud whizzing sound and felt something hit me really, really hard on my right ear. I said to myself, wow, what was that?
I said to myself, self?
And moved my right hand to my ear, brought it down. My hand was covered with blood, just absolutely blood all over the place. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack, and in one movement proceeded to drop to the ground. Bullets were continuing to fly as very brave Secret Service agents rushed to the stage, and they really did. They rushed to the stage.
He's being very kind now, Jim. He's got you, though, because he wants his next group of agents to be even better.
These are great people, at great risk, I will tell you, and pounced on top of me so that I would be protected. There was blood pouring everywhere, and yet, in a certain way, I felt very safe because I had God on my side. I felt that. The amazing thing is that prior to the shot, if I had not moved my head at that very last instant, the assassin's bullet would have perfectly hit its mark, and I would not be here tonight. We would not be together. The most incredible aspect of what took place on that terrible evening in the fading sun was actually seen later. In almost all cases, as you probably know, and when even a single bullet is fired, just a single bullet, and we had many bullets that were being fired, crowds run for the exits or stampede, but not in this case. It's very unusual.
Yeah, that was weird. Nobody tried to take off running or doing acting crazy. That was very weird.
It was. I heard a few people scream, but
I think people were in shock. You know what I mean? It wasn't like we were like, "Oh my God, they're shooting at Trump." Like most people probably thought they were shooting at Trump, and they weren't shooting at them, and it wasn't like they were shooting. I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
I don't know. You hear a gun in a crowded place, so you're probably going to scatter. But they didn't. It's pretty crazy.
Beast.
This massive crowd of tens of thousands of people stood by and didn't move an inch. In fact, many of them bravely but automatically stood up looking for where the sniper would be. They knew immediately it was a sniper.
Are you hearing anything pop?
And then began pointing at him.
Okay,
You
I
can
thought it
see
was
that
me.
if you
All
look
right.
at the group behind me. That was just a small group compared to what was in front. Nobody ran, and by not stampeding, many lives were saved. But that isn't the reason that they didn't move. The reason is that they knew I was in very serious trouble. They saw it. They saw me go down. They saw the blood and thought, actually, most did, that I was dead. They knew it was a shot to the head. They saw the blood. And there's an interesting statistic. The ears are the bloodiest part. If something happens with the ears, they bleed more than any other part of the body. For whatever reason, the doctors told me that. I said, why is there so much blood? He said, it's the ears. They bleed more. So we learned something, but this beautiful crowd, they didn't want to leave me. They knew I was in trouble. They didn't want to leave me. And you can see that love written all over their faces. Incredible people. They're incredible people. Bullets were flying over us, yet I felt serene. But now the Secret Service agents were putting themselves in peril. They were in very dangerous territory. Bullets were flying right over them, missing them by a very small amount of inches. And then it all stopped. Our Secret Service sniper, from a much greater distance and with only one bullet used, took the assassin's life, took him out.
There you go, Amato.
I'm not supposed to be here.
He's going to talk about the guy. He's got his fucking... He's got the guy's jacket right here. He's going to talk about him. See it right here? That's the fireman's jacket. It says his name right there. Camparo, Campagnino, Compliano. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, he'll talk about him.
Thank you.
I'm dumb in motto.
But
I'm
I'm not. And I'll tell you, I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God. In watching the reports over the last few days, many people say it was a providential moment. Probably was. When I rose, surrounded by Secret Service, the crowd was confused because they thought I was dead, and there was great, great sorrow. I could see that on their faces as I looked out. They didn't know I was looking out. They thought it was over. But I could see it, and I wanted to do something to let them know I was okay. I raised my right arm, looked at the thousands and thousands of people that were breathlessly waiting, and started shouting, "Fight, fight, fight."
Dude, this is the worst thing in the world that could have happened to Biden, man. You know what I'm saying, Jim?
Thank you. Once my clenched fist went up, and it was high into the air. You've all seen that.
So high, higher than any other
The crowd
fist.
realized
The
I was
highest fist
okay
ever.
and roared
I've got the
with
highest
pride
fist ever.
for our country like no crowd I have ever heard before. Never heard anything like it. For the rest of my life, I will be grateful for the love shown by that giant audience of patriots that stood bravely on that fateful evening in Pennsylvania.
Oh.
Tragically, the shooter claimed the life of one of our fellow Americans, Corey, comparator, unbelievable person, everybody tells me. Unbelievable. And seriously wounded. 2 other great warriors, spoke to them today. David Dutch and James Copenhaver. 2 great people. I also spoke to all 3 families of these tremendous people. Our love and prayers are with them and always will be. We're never going to forget them. They came for a great rally. They were serious Trumpsters, I want to tell you. They were serious Trumpsters and still are. But Corey, unfortunately, we have to use the past tense. He was incredible. He was a highly respected former fire chief, respected by everybody. Was accompanied by his wife, Helen, incredible woman. I spoke to her today, devastated, and 2 precious daughters. He lost his life selflessly acting as a human shield to protect them from flying bullets. He went right over the top of them and was hit. What a fine man he was. I want to thank the fire department and the family for sending his helmet, his outfit, and it was just something, and they're going to do something very special when they get it. But we did something which cannot match what happened, not even close. But I am very proud to say that over the past few days, we've raised $6.3 million.
Jim,
for the families
Jim, do those
of David.
families like sue people over shit like this? Like,
I don't know who they could sue really. I mean, there's programs, but like if they raised money, they did like a fundraiser thing for him, and over the past few days, like you said, 6.3 million. But if he really wanted, he should say like, and I'm going to match it.
oh,
Would be what to
okay,
say.
so
You know what I'm
I
saying?
thought
Like
he said
it would be the right thing for him to say. It's whatever. I'm going to match it, and
his family raised six. Well, they
no,
raised
it was a
6.3
they
for
they
family.
did a
Okay.
like a GoFundMe or something that raised 6.3 million, and like I don't know, like somebody you would think Musk or somebody would match it or Trump would match it, you know.
Right.
James and Corey, including from a friend of mine, just called up. He sent me a check right here. I just got it. $1 million. From Dan Newland. Thank you, Dan. And again, when speaking to the family, I told them, I said, well, I'm going to be sending you a lot of money, but it can't compensate. They all said the same thing. You're right, sir. We appreciate so much what you're doing, but nothing can take the place in the case of Corey. And the other two, by the way, they were very, very seriously injured, but now they're doing very well. They're going to be okay. They're going to be doing very well. They're warriors. So now I ask that we observe a moment of silence in honor of our friend Corey. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for others. This is the spirit that forged America in her darkest hours, and this is the love that will lead America back to the summit of human achievement and greatness. This is what we need. Despite such a heinous attack, we unite this evening more determined than ever. I am more determined than ever, and so are you. So is everybody in this room.
Dude, it's going to be really weird if he does a fucking rap with 50 Cent after this.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you very much.
I think maybe they're not going to do it. You know, maybe he told 50 Cent it's not the tone we want to take.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe at the next rally.
You know.
Our resolve is unbroken and our purpose is unchanged to deliver a government that serves the American people better than ever before. Nothing will stop me in this mission because our vision is righteous and our cause is pure. No matter what obstacle comes our way, we will not break.
Damn, I guess low watermark has been drinking.
We will not back down, and I will never stop fighting for you,
He's been on a
your
roll.
family, and
He's been on a
our
Twitter roll.
magnificent country.
I haven't seen Twitter.
Never.
Well, that's what he was saying before the stream. He's hammering everybody.
And everything I have to give with all of the energy and fight in my heart and soul, I pledge to our nation tonight. Thank you very much. I pledge that to our nation. We're going to turn our nation around, and we're going to do it very quickly. Thank you. This election should be about the issues facing our country and how to make America successful, safe, free, and great again. In an age when our politics too often divide us, now is the time to remember that we are all fellow citizens. We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we must not criminalize dissent or demonize political disagreement, which is what's been happening in our country lately at a level that nobody has ever seen before. In that spirit, the Democrat Party should immediately stop weaponizing the justice system and labeling their political opponent as an enemy of democracy. Especially since that is not true. In fact, I am the one saving democracy for the people of our country. And very big news.
Are they trying to push Biden out again, Joe?
Just read.
Yeah.
On Monday, a major
Are they really?
ruling was handed down from a highly respected federal judge in Florida, Eileen Cannon, finding that the prosecutor and the fake documents case against me were totally unconstitutional, and the entire case was thrown out of court. With all of that publicity, thrown out of court. If Democrats want to unify our country, they should drop these partisan witch hunts, which I have been going through for approximately 8 years. And they should do that without delay and allow an election to proceed that is worthy of our people. We're going to win it anyway, but worthy of our people. On this journey, I am deeply honored to be joined by my amazing wife, Melania.
She still looks good, Jim.
Okay, so just to cut into this, Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer have communicated to senior party leaders that they would not be interested in serving as Harris's running mate, according to a person familiar with the candidates in the mix to join Harris atop of the ticket.
Oh, so they're really trying to push him out then.
Yeah, they're going to push him out, and then Harris is going to be, but nobody wants to be her VP because she's
a
polls
clown.
worse than Trump, and she's a clown. Ooh, buddy. Sorry to cut that off.
Does she have to get the nomination?
Well, she doesn't have to, but she kind of does, because if they pass her over, it'll be a problem. And she's got to be able to use all the money Biden has raised. They would need to keep Harris. She's the only one that could take that money. And who knows? Maybe Biden's going to resign as president, and she'll become president.
I was going to say, why would Biden want to give her the money? He's looking for somebody else to be. Well, whoever takes over would get the money, right?
No. His money
Just
that
his
he
campaign.
raised, his campaign, it has to stay with that campaign. And the FEC would have a major problem. You know what I mean? He couldn't just shift it to he could shift it to a super PAC, maybe. I'm not sure exactly, but I don't. No, actually, he couldn't, because you can't intermingle campaign funds and super PAC funds. So, yeah.
He looks good still.
And Melania, thank you very much. You also did something really beautiful, a letter to America calling for national unity, and it really took the Republican Party by surprise. I will tell you, it was beautiful. In fact, some very serious people said that we should take that letter and put it as part of the Republican platform. That would be an honor, wouldn't it? Right, Mr. Congressman? But it captivated so many, so I also want to thank my entire family for being here. Don, Kimberly, Ivanka and Jared, Eric and Lara, Tiffany and Michael, Barron. We love our Barron. And of course, my 10 wonderful grandchildren. You saw a few of them up there on my lap before. And how good was Dana? Was Dana good? I mean, was he good? He was on probably the only vacation he's had in about, maybe ever, because he works, but about 10 years with his wife, very far away. I won't tell you where, but very, very far away, beautiful place. And my people called, and he said, I won't be able to do it. This is many, many years. I promised my wife I can't do it. And they came in, they said, Dana won't be able to do it, because he was my first, second, and third choice. I said, well, that's too bad, but I understand he's away, and it's good. It's good for him. And that was it. About 30 minutes later, she came back in, sir, Dana just called. He's going to do it. And his wife, she said, you can't turn him down. You just can't do it. You have to go. That's a good wife.
That's a good wife.
So he got on a plane. He got here a little while ago. Now he's going to get on the plane in a little while, and he's going to go back home to his wife. But they're great, and I just want to thank her and him and their whole family, because that's not easy. And Kid Rock, same thing. Called, he said, I want to be a part of it. I want to be a part, because, Kid does his great song, Big, Big Monster song. I had no idea. He became a friend of mine over the last 10 years. And he's amazing. Everyone loves him. I didn't even know how big he was. He has rallies, 35, 40,000 people he gets every time he goes out. I think he's making so much money, he doesn't know what the hell to do with it. You want to know? And then we have my other friend, and I've known him so long, and we took that song, and it was a big success, but we made that. I saw a chart of great songs to America. That was #1 on the chart recently, #1. So that's Lee Greenwood, very special, beautiful person. He's a beautiful man. But they all wanted to be here. They called. And how about the Hulkster? How good was he? Is he up? Where is he? Boy, oh boy. You know, they may call that entertainment. I know about entertainment, but when he used to lift a 350-pound man over his shoulders and then bench press him 2 rows into the audience, I say, maybe entertainment, but he is one strong son of a gun. I will tell you, I watched it many times. There aren't a lot of entertainers that can do that, right? You were fantastic. Thank you very much. Followed by Eric. What was that all about? Boy, that was good. I didn't want to really come up here. But he was so great, and he's such a good young man. He went through a lot of trouble, and Don last night was incredible. They went through so much trouble. They got subpoenaed more than any people probably in the history of the United States. Every week they get another subpoena from the Democrats, crazy Nancy Pelosi, the whole thing, just boom, boom, boom. They've got to stop that because they're destroying our country. We have to work on making America great again, not on beating people. And we won. We beat them and all. We beat them on the impeachments. We beat them on indictments. We beat them. But the time that you have to spend, if they would devote that genius to helping our country, we'd have a much stronger and better country. And Jason, the biggest star in country music. Jason, thank you for being here. Jason, thank you very much. Jason Aldean, he's good. I like his wife even better, by the way. She's here. Thank you, Jason. But I'm thrilled to have a new friend and partner fighting by my side. The next Vice President of the United States, the current Senator from Ohio, J.D. Vance, and his incredible wife, Usha. He's going to be a great Vice President. He's going to be great. He'll be with this country and with this movement, greatest movement in the history of our country, Make America Great Again. When they criticized it, they said, we're going to try and stop MAGA. I said, MAGA is Make America Great Again. What are you going to stop? There's nothing to stop. Then they say, oh, that's right. It's very tough to fight it. And all of the people that did try and fight it have failed. But he's going to be with us for a long time, and it was an honor to select him. Great, great student at Yale. His wife was a great student at Yale. They met at Yale. These are two smart people. So, J.D., you're going to be doing this for a long time. Enjoy the ride. And a very special thank you to the extraordinary people of Milwaukee and the great state of, oh, there they are. There they are. You are so easy to spot. And Green Bay's going to have a good team this year, right? They're going to have a good team.
No.
They're going to have a good team. Most of the audience doesn't like it, but it's true. You're going to have a very good team this year. And by the way, Wisconsin, we are spending over $250 million here, creating jobs and other economic development all over the place. So I hope you will remember this in November and give us your vote. I am trying to buy your vote. I'll be honest about that.
That's funny, Jim.
And I promise we will make Wisconsin great again. We're going to make it. Thank you, Mr. Governor. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm here tonight to lay out a vision for the whole nation, to every citizen, whether you're a young or old man or woman, Democrat, Republican, or independent, black or white, Asian or Hispanic. I extend to you a hand of loyalty and of friendship. Together, we will lead America to new heights of greatness like the world has never seen before. We were right there in the first term. We got hit with COVID. We did a great job. Nobody knew what it was, but nobody's ever seen an economy pre-COVID. And then we handed over a stock market that was substantially higher than just prior to COVID. Coming in, did a great job. Never got credit for that. We got credit for the war and defeating ISIS and so many things, the great economy, the biggest tax cuts ever, the biggest regulation cuts ever, the creation of Space Force, the rebuilding of our military. We did so much. We did so much. Right to try. Right to try is a big deal. We got right to try. They were trying to get that for 52 years, audience, but it does happen a lot. They're terminally ill and they can't use our new space age drugs and other things that we are way ahead. We have the greatest doctors in the world, the greatest laboratories in the world, and you can't do it. They've been trying to get that approved for 52 years. Wasn't that easy? The insurance companies didn't want to do it. They didn't want the risk. The labs didn't want to do it because if it didn't work, people are pretty far down the line toward death. They didn't want to do it. The doctors didn't want to have it on their records, so I got everybody into an office. 52 years they tried. Sounds simple, but it's not. And I got them to agree that somebody that needs it will, instead of going to Asia, Europe, or someplace, or if you have no money, going home and dying.
Jim, your dog wants nothing to do with you, man.
We got them to sign an agreement, agree to it, where they're not going to sue anybody. They're going to get all of this stuff. They're going to get it really fast. And what's happened is we're saving thousands and thousands of lives. It's incredible. Right to try. It's a great feeling. Under our leadership, the United States will be respected again. No nation will question our power. No enemy will doubt our might. Our borders will be totally secure. Our economy will soar. We will return law and order to our streets, patriotism to our schools, and importantly, we will restore peace, stability, and harmony all throughout the world. But to achieve failed and even incompetent leadership, we have totally incompetent leadership. This will be the most important election in the history of our country. Under the current administration, we are indeed a nation in decline. We have an inflation crisis that is making life unaffordable, ravaging the incomes of working and low-income families, and crushing.
Jim, are you there?
Just simply crushing our people.
Yeah, what's up?
Never before. They've never seen
couldn't
anything
hear your
like
dog
it.
bark.
We also
I had it
have an
muted.
illegal
Oh, okay.
immigration crisis, and it's taking place right now as we sit here in this beautiful arena.
She doesn't want me
It's a
bothering her.
massive
She's
invasion
sleeping.
at our southern border
I can
that
tell.
has spread misery, crime, poverty, disease, and destruction to communities all across our land. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Then there's an international crisis, the likes of which the world has seldom been part of. Nobody can believe what's happening. War is now raging in Europe and the Middle East. A growing specter of conflict hangs over Taiwan, Korea, the Philippines, and all of Asia. And our planet is teetering on the edge of World War III. And this will be a war like no other war because of weaponry. The weapons are no longer army tanks going back and forth shooting at each other. These weapons are obliteration. It's time for a change. This administration can't come close to solving the problems. We're dealing with very tough,
Trump ain't
very
looking
fierce
very
people.
trim
They're
there,
fierce
buddy.
people. And we don't have fierce people. We have people that are a lot less than fierce, except when it comes to
They're going to call in
cheating on
Yaira.
elections and a couple of other things. Then they're fierce. Then they're fierce. So tonight, I make this pledge to the great people of America. I will end the devastating inflation crisis immediately, bring down interest rates, and lower the cost of energy. We will drill, baby, drill. Can you believe what they're doing? But by doing that, we will lead a large-scale decline in prices. Prices will start to come down. Energy raised it. They took our energy policies and destroyed them. Then they immediately went back to them, but by that time, so much was lost. But we will do it at levels that nobody's ever seen before, and we'll end lots of different things. We'll start paying off debt and start lowering taxes even further. We gave you the largest tax cut. We'll do it more. You know, people don't realize I brought taxes way down, way down, and yet we took in more revenues the following year than we did when the tax rate was much higher. Most people said, how did you do that? Because it was incentive. Everybody was coming to the country. They were bringing back billions and billions of dollars into our country. The companies made it impossible to bring it back. The tax rate was too high, and the legal complications were far too great. I changed both of them, and hundreds of billions of dollars by Apple and so many other companies were brought back into our nation, and we had an economy the likes of which no nation had ever seen. China, we were beating them at levels that were incredible. And they know it. They know it. We'll do it again, but we'll do it even better. I will end the illegal immigration crisis by closing our border and finishing the wall, most of which I've already built.
I wish you'd quit saying that, Jim.
On the wall, we were dealing with a very difficult Congress. And I said, oh, that's okay. We won't go to Congress. I call it an invasion. We gave our military almost $800 billion. I said, I'm going to take a little of that money because this is an invasion. And we built, most of the wall is already built. And we built it through using the funds because what's better than that? We have to stop the invasion into our country that's killing hundreds of thousands of people a year. We're not going to let that happen. I will end every single international crisis that the current administration has created, including the horrible war with Russia and Ukraine, which would have never happened if I was president, and the war caused by the attack on Israel, which would have never happened if I was president. Iran was broke. Iran had no money. Now Iran has $250 billion. They made it all over the last 2.5 years. They were broke. I watched the other day on a show called Deface the Nation. Has anyone seen it? And they had a congressman who was a Democrat say, well, whether you like him or not, Iran was broke dealing with Trump. I told China and other countries, if you buy from Iran, we will not let you do any business in this country, and we will put tariffs on every product you do send in of 100% or more. And they said to me, well, I think that's about it. They weren't going to buy any oil. And they were ready to make a deal. Iran was going to make a deal with us. And then we had that horrible, horrible result that we'll never let happen again. The election result, we're never going to let that happen again. They used COVID to cheat. We're never going to let it happen again. And they took off all the sanctions and they did everything possible for Iran. And now Iran is very close to having a nuclear weapon, which would have never happened. This is a shame what this administration, the damage that this administration has done. And I say it often, if you took the 10 worst presidents in the history of the United States, think of it, the 10 worst, added them up, they will not have done the damage that Biden has done. Only going to use the term once. Biden, I'm not going to use the name anymore, just one time. The damage that he's done to this country is unthinkable. It's unthinkable. Together we will restore vision, strength, competence, and we're going to have a thing called common sense making most of our decisions, actually. It's all common sense. Just a few short years ago, under my presidency, we had the most secure border and best economy in the history of our country, in the history of the world. We had the greatest economy in the history of the world. We had never done anything like it. We were beating every country, including China, by leaps and bounds. Nobody had seen anything like it. We had no inflation, soaring incomes were going. Nobody's Nobody can believe it. You can't believe what happened 4 years ago is happening now in reverse. And the world was at peace. Inflation has been a killer for our country. No matter what you make it, it doesn't matter because inflation is eating you alive. People that were putting away money, they were making great wages, the highest they've ever made, but they were putting away a lot of money. Now they are just being destroyed. They're not putting away anything. They're barely living. They're going into savings accounts. They're taking out their money to live because of inflation. Inflation, remember, it's called a country buster. You can go back to Germany from 100 years ago. You can go back to any country that suffered great inflation. We've suffered the worst inflation we've ever had. But go back and see what's happened to those countries. We've had the worst inflation we've ever had under this person. But in less than 4 years, our opponents have turned incredible success into unparalleled tragedy and failure. It's been a tremendous failure. Today, our cities are flooded with illegal aliens. Americans are being squeezed out of the labor force and their jobs are taken. And by the way, you know who's taking the jobs that are created? 107% of those jobs are taken by illegal aliens. And you know who's being hurt the most by millions of people pouring into...
Okay, how can it be 107%? I don't get that.
I'm done with the speech, dude. It's the same thing we've heard for 8 years. I'm sorry.
I don't get that. How is it possible that 107% of the jobs are
being replaced?
Yeah. So he must have misspoke about something.
No, I think maybe he's saying all new jobs that are created are 100% filled, and if 7% of the people lose their jobs, are being refilled by 7% of illegals. So maybe that's where he's getting the number. Maybe, but enough of this.
Starting on day one, we will drive down prices. They've taken advantage of a little cash is given. It's all put right on the...
You want to watch Tucker Carlson's speech?
No, I'm going to go to bed.
Oh, okay.
I got to get up at 5. I got to go to Moline tomorrow, but we'll be back tomorrow night. Yeah.
All right.
We'll be back tomorrow night. And thanks for the super chats tonight. I learned a lot tonight though, Jim. I got to tell you, between those two,
we didn't even really scratch the surface. There's a whole bunch more. We didn't get into the whole conspiracy angles.
Well, we didn't do our 50 tonight to continue tomorrow, so it'll have to be the next time we do $50 in super chats, or next Thursday, either or. It doesn't matter to me, but yeah, it's
we're only 20 short. If they want to get it, they need to get in. We had 5 gifted memberships, and right, your memberships are $5, right?
3.
Oh, never mind.
$2.99. It's 20. It's no big deal. Point is, we'll
guess if they wanted it, they'd have to give $30 real fast. Well,
this isn't.
Come on,
though.
5 minutes. You got 5 minutes. Let's go. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Go to PayPal, Streamlabs, DoorDash,
Venmo, whatever.
Uber Eats, Venmo.
Yeah. That's a Hungarian francs, huh? What is that, like $5, Ben? I have no idea what the Hungarian monetary or what their currency's worth at all. Yeah, so that the first one we kind of he really got into the economics of why they did it, right? So
yeah, he was just tying it all to the
all the way up to today about why. Yeah. So that was actually really interesting. And then the next one, we just get to hear the Misi group talking about it. And there's a lot more on that stuff out there we can go over too. So, yeah. That was great. You ever been to Moline, Jim?
Yeah, I had an uncle and aunt that used to live in Moline.
Yeah.
Used to go fishing on the Rock River.
Yeah, that's where my son went to school out there. So either way, thanks, chat. It's been fun. I'm going to check out, and we will see you tomorrow night. Just look for the for the time. Should be 7 or 8. Jim, we'll see, right? With you. So, all right, guys. Thanks. See you tomorrow.